Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the February 17th Administration and Operations Committee meeting. Thank you all for attending here. We do have a pretty full house and a pretty full agenda today. Noting we have Councillor Miller and Councillor Kyle online. All the members of the committee are in the house. As far as the agenda, Councillor Oakley is not here today. As far as the agenda, does anybody have anything to add to the agenda, first of all? Councillor Howe, something to add?
It's more of an adjustment, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
Anybody have anything to add? Okay, Councillor Howe, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can we adjust to have item number 8.1 show up right after the delegations so that everybody doesn't have to wait for a couple hours to get to the topics that are all kind of connected?
Okay, so 8.1 to be moved to after 4.9? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so 8.1 moved to after 4.9. Thank you for that. Any other? Okay, and we're also, my understanding is we are going to move 4.8, which is a consultant for the Northland West Master Plan. We're going to move that up to after 4.1, so to begin the delegations. We will move them up to there. So again, we're going to move 4.8 up prior to 4.2. Everybody's clear? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. One other thing I will note today, unfortunately, I need to leave at 11:30 if we're still going. Vice Chair Councillor Howes will come up and assume the chair at that time if that happens. Okay, so just a heads up for that as well. And also I believe Councillor McAlpine has to head out early today as well. So without further ado, anybody declaring pecuniary interest? Seeing none at this time, if anything comes up through the meeting, please let me know ASAP. So delegations, we have a number of them today. So we're going to start off with 4.1, which is a great way to start the day, the presentation of the Economic Developments Council of Ontario. So Adam, start with the congratulations and it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Thrilled to be here this morning. I'll try to be as quick as possible owing to the time. But on Wednesday, February 4th, the County of Brant received 2 awards of excellence at the Economic Developers Council of Ontario's 69th annual conference. This is related to the downtown dig and all the pre-planning and business mitigation work that went into ensuring that at least the 2025 version of the downtown dig was incredibly successful. These 2 awards, both in business attraction and retention in the rural stream, and importantly, excellence in rural economic development, truly represent the effort, the whole organizational, the council and the staff level, the community level, the Downtown Paris BIA, our contractor, our consulting engineer, truly shows just how much work went into this, recognizing the importance to the community. And while 2025 was successful, we know that we can't rest on our laurels with this award. We're going to keep working for 2026 and beyond. Mr. Mayor, it's my pleasure to present these awards to you.
Thank you for that. And again, congratulations to all. Okay, so we are now going to bring up Chris and Josh, consultants. Oh, Stacy's going to go first. believe there's a presentation here.
Good morning, Council. Stacey Ellens, Director of Parks and Recreation and the Project Manager for North of the Nith. I would like to start off by recognizing the North of the Nith project team, Phil Met, who's our project sponsor, Chris Ferris and Josh Paul, our consultants from Scatliff, Miller, and Murray, Dana McKelvey, DJ Hussey, Trent Myers, Kathy Ballantyne, Megan Thomas, all from Community Services, Andrea Bizard, Matt DeHaunt, Greg Demers, and Jason DeMonk from Operations, and then members of our Planning, GIS, and Communications team. I would also like to thank our 2 First Nation partners and 10 community partners who helped shape the development of the master plan. Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, 6 Nations of the Grand River, Amarise, Brant Cycling Club, Brant Death Racers, Brant for Nature, Brant Municipal Enterprises, Brant Tree Coalition, Brant Waterways Foundation, Ducks Unlimited Canada, Freshwater Conservation Canada, and Grand River Conservation Authority. Through our engagement with the public and community partners, we heard that balancing recreation with conservation is a top priority. Alongside a strong interest in seeing mountain bike trails throughout the north of the Nith, the community also expressed a desire in having a variety of trail types and experiences. The majority of the primary trail network identified in the master plan already exists. The plan focuses on upgrading these trails to current sustainable trail standards so they can better support these shared goals. The master plan recommends approximately 15 kilometers of primary trails broken down as follows. Shared trails, approximately 12 kilometers for walking, running, and biking. Pedestrian-only trail, approximately 1 kilometer for boardwalk and discovery trail. Mountain bike trail park is approximately 2 kilometers. In addition to the primary trail network, the master plan identifies 5 to 7 kilometers of secondary trails for mountain biking and includes a recommendation for the inclusion of a trails committee. This community-led committee will be composed of representatives from the Brant Cycling Club, Brant for Nature, and Brant Waterways Foundation to establish the secondary trail network in the north of the Nith with guidance from the county. At full build-out, cyclists will have access to 19 to 21 kilometers of trail in the north of the Nith. There are significant constraints within this site that limit trail development beyond which has been identified, including the county's operational zone, areas of natural and scientific interest, conservation authority hazards, areas of high archaeological potential, areas with slope stability issues, and phasing constraints related to Amarise mineral extraction rights. On January 20th, 2026, staff met with the Brant Cycling Club to go over key terms that would be required in the Brant Cycling Club draft stewardship agreement for Phase 1, which is anticipated to include the mountain bike trail park and Penman's Pass trail extension, subject to council's approval. In addition, I would like to mention significant milestones that have been completed to date and acknowledge staff's effort to ensure this project continues to progress. The CN Railway Street acquisition and fencing, approval in principle of a maintenance agreement between the County of Brant and the GRCA for lands within the project area that are owned by the GRCA, ongoing collaboration with Amarise and the Grand River Conservation Authority to progress the project, archaeological stage 1 assessment, pre-consultation with MECP regarding land use changes and required ECA amendments, and preliminary discussions for the development of the Brant Cycling Club draft stewardship agreement for Phase 1. I would now like to introduce Chris Ferris and Josh Paul, our consultants from Scatliff, Miller, Murray, to present to you the North of the Nith Trails and Open Spaces Master Plan.
Hi, thank you, Stacey. Hello, Council and Mr. Mayor. Is it okay to put the slide deck up so we can see the pictures? Just Just bear with us a second, we'll put the slides on the screen. Okay, thank you. My name is Chris Fears. I'm a principal landscape architect at Scatliff Miller Murray and lead landscape architect consultant for the project. So our team includes trail designers, biologists, engagement specialists, and landscape architects. So we're going to give you an overview of the North and Nith Master Plan this morning. Stacy did cover most of the content, and hopefully ours will supplement it with some nice pretty pictures. So the project was completed in 3 phases. You can see on the slide, understand, explore, and decide, and it was conducted over a 2-year period. Public and community partner input was gathered throughout. The light green circles are the public consultation events in the timeline. The yellow circles are workshops that were held with community partners. This is sort of big group activities. Below those are gray circles. So there was, as Stacy mentioned, First Nations meetings and a series of one-on-one interviews with the community partners. So, and again, as Stacy mentioned, throughout the process, the number one message we heard was the need to balance recreation with nature conservation. So what is a master plan? So this master plan is it's a framework that defines the long-term vision, and the important word is vision for the lands here. It includes a phased implementation strategy, and it's intended to guide development over a 20-year period. So all the projects in the master plan are conceptual, and they do require further design, some approvals, and funding before construction can happen. Some projects also require additional studies and assessments. Here's a picture of the site area. I would imagine you're all very familiar with it. Paris is on the right-hand side of the image. The Nith River is along the bottom, and it forms a peninsula. The CN Railway is on the top. So as Stacy mentioned, the land's really defined by varied ecosystems, very tightly associated with the river peninsula. It does have a number of constraints, including a capped landfill, a county operational zone, which is in white. So that includes the land transfer station and some other county uses. The whole sort of bottom part of the site is defined by is an area of natural and scientific interest, or an ANSI for short. Conservation authority hazards, there's areas of archaeological potential, areas of slope stability issues, and there are, as Stacy mentioned, phasing constraints related to AmRise, some permissions AmRise have on the site. Here's a map showing ownership and operations. So the land is owned by the County of Brant and the Grand River Conservation Authority, or the GRCA for short. The polka dot pattern on the map is the AmRise area that AmRise holds an active, or formerly Lafarge. They hold an active aggregate license in the south portion of the study area. So when we get a little bit later in the presentation, we'll talk a little bit about some ideas for, perhaps phasing projects around that license. There is still some uncertainty over whether or not they will actually start to conduct operations on the land, but there are ongoing discussions with AmRise about their future intentions. Okay, so this is an overview of the engagement activities. It was really included sort of 4 main tools. A public engagement stream, which included surveys, a pop-up in the park, and posting materials online for feedback. Series of First Nations interviews and meetings. Community partner one-on-one interviews to start the process, to really hear about the goals and ambitions and the constraints and opportunities of the place, and through to sharing ideas of draft concepts and seeking feedback on those with community partners. As Stacy mentioned, there is a group of about 10 different organizations involved as community partners, and very excited and invested group of people. And they're important because the master plan really sees those people as the future stewards of the plan and the site. And again, as I mentioned, on the right, the First Nations workshops. So what we heard from the engagement was really divided into these 5 themes shown on the slide here. We heard a strong interest in dedicated mountain biking trails. We were pointed to look at the success of nearby projects, including the Hydro Cut and Turkey Point. People were interested in seeing a network for all users and ability levels. We heard that people want to keep the place natural and avoid overdevelopment. We heard that there's interest from the 2 First Nations in ongoing involvement in the site and the lands. We heard the need to protect habitats and control invasive species. There are concerns, real concerns about ATVs and the need for enforcement, so there's some recommendations in the master plan on that. And we also heard the need for multi-use compatibility, so really developing a network of trails and spaces that are accessible to all users and abilities. Okay, so the recommendations for the master plan really flow from what we heard, and we've organized them into 3 key themes. These are based on what we've heard and our analysis. So restoring the natural environment really is about protecting and enhancing the sensitive natural features, addressing the invasive species, and there's a lot of them out there, limiting motorized vehicle impacts, and establishing partnerships with community groups for restoration and trail work. The land is, the biggest challenge in the land today is its access. It is, because of the peninsula shape and the rail on the north side, access is very limited. So the other key recommendation is to strengthen site access. So that includes parking, new entrance points, new trail connections, and clarifying operational access. So the county will continue to use the county operational lands, that white spot in the middle of the site, for their ongoing operational activities. So balancing getting people to the lands in a safe manner and operations is a key concern and priority. So really the goal is to create a sustainable, diverse trail network with improved user experience, better amenities, and as well as education-focused features, which we heard a lot of. So those could include lookouts, wayfinding, discovery opportunities, or even opportunities for outdoor education. So here's the vision statement, and it really speaks to, again, balancing nature conservation and recreation. Six guiding principles were developed in collaboration with the community group and with public input, and they were used to inform the development of the master plan. They include protect and restore, safe, accessible, inclusive, enhancing visitor experience, collaboration with First Nation partners, education, and community involvement and stewardship. Okay, so we're going to jump into the master plan here. The master plan is really divided into 5 main recommendations. 5, we call them big moves, to how it is a big site. And the focus is on really improving the existing trails, and it's not about building a new trail network. Those trails exist out there today in an unauthorized manner. It's really about upgrading them to sustainable construction, maintenance, and rerouting some of them away from sensitive areas. This big move number 1, loops and links. So when we went out inside initially and we met with the community partners, what we found was the place contains a real wealth of very varied and distinct ecological areas. So one of the big ideas is to develop a trail network with certain themes that are based on the existing ecologies out there. So you see things like we're calling the Oak Savanna, the River's Edge Trail, the Marshlands Loop, the Dunes Loop, or the Penman's Pass Trail Extension. So they're really about the character and the nature of the landscape that exists today. This map shows the primary trail network, and as Stacy mentioned, one of the main recommendations of the master plan is to establish what's called a Trails Committee, and the Trails Committee would work together to develop the secondary trails. So we heard in the community workshops that to create an interesting and varied biking experience, a network is needed. So there would be a secondary layer, and that's shown in the master plan of recommended areas where that secondary layer of mountain bike trails could exist. Mountain bike trails really, they go beyond a master plan level. They do require a certain hands-on kind of site-specific implementation that like I said, is beyond a master plan. So here's a few images of each of those 6 character areas. Like I said, it's extremely varied and quite unique spaces. The Oak Savannah Loop, for example, we had been calling the Prairie Meadow at the beginning of the project, but through our work with the community partners and on-site reviews, we'd learned that and observed oaks starting to colonize around the edges. And not coming from Ontario, the idea of the Oak Savannah, I think it's really, it's a quite important Ontario Carolinian North Lakeshore ecosystem that is very worth protecting. Okay, so next move here, the mountain bike trail park. So this idea was to really use the CAP landfill. It offers natural rolling topography, and it's located away from the sensitive areas, so away from the river, and that has very limited archaeological impact because of the previous disturbances with the landfill. And so what the master plan recommends is establishing this area, and it's the sort of dark spot on the plan there, as a dedicated area for more technical riding. So we did a few studies, and it can accommodate about 2 kilometers of trails. And so those trails could be focused for more higher speeds and accommodate a range of bike-specific features. So just to be clear, this is, this space is focused for mountain bike riding. It's not the only place where mountain biking can happen in the lands. As Stacy mentioned, many of the trails in the plan will be considered shared trails, but there is also opportunities for a network of secondary trails to be constructed. So the mountain bike trail park has a potential for partnership with the Brant Cycling Club and others for funding, building, and maintenance. Okay, so big move number 3, environmental restoration and protection. So the master plan outlines 7 restoration types that are shown in this figure and mapped here. These recommendations were developed with the GRCA, the community partners, and First Nations, and they include, I'm just going to read the key, grading and drainage improvements, priority and natural managed habitats. So the yellow colors, like I mentioned, the Oak Savannah or the Prairie Meadow is an example of a priority and managed habitat. Charlie Creek restoration, I noticed the key is a little off on here. Charlie Creek is the blue hatched area. There was a report done previous to our involvement in the project by a local group that identified 4 opportunities for improving Charlie Creek, and so we think taking those recommendations forward is a critical objective given its potential habitat creation location as a cold water creek. Wetland restoration, so the blue blobs up in the north, reforestation, so the darker green blobs up in the north side, and some trails that we are recommending to be decommissioned, and really because they are in conflict with some of the more sensitive areas, in particular near the river. Here's an image of what some of those could look like. The bottom left picture is sort of a typical problem you'd see on the site, that this is a sort of double tracking from an ATV vehicle. Okay, so big move number 4, Penman's Pass extension. So Penman's Pass was, it was actually identified as a public interest early on for creating a priority access point. It is a key eastern entrance, and so in combination with 2 other potential entrances, we'll talk about the Railway Lane and Railway Street. This one effectively extends the Penman's Pass Trail that exists today and terminates at the parking lot just off Broadway or Broadview. So it does have challenges. There are grading and erosion challenges, and the implementation strategy does include funds to address those challenges. We do think it is a critical link. Because of AmRise, AmRise's lands may encumber or challenge access for the early years. And Penman's Pass, because again, the trail does exist, it does need improvements, is a way to get people into the site if AmRise continues. It also creates access to the bike trail park. Okay, big move number 5. This is the last big move, and I have a few more slides left here. So the master plan recommends 2 entrances, and they're shown in dots up on the slide here. The primary entrance we're recommending is from Railway Street, and there's an opportunity for a future secondary entrance off Railway Lane. So both of these entrances are connected to, or at the ends of public roads, and both will have continued county operational access. So that's important. So we did hear in our workshops that because there will be continued county operational access, creating safe access points for cyclists and pedestrians is critical. Both entrances are recommended to include parking, wayfinding, and amenities to support, arrival and orientation. So beyond the study area, but included in the recommendations is a recommendation to improve both streets that come in. And we're suggesting they include protected paths for safer walking and cycling. So they're not within this budget and they're outside of the scope of this project, but having spoken with the county, if and when there are road upgrades, that additional cycling and pedestrian infrastructure be considered. So this will require coordination with CN, property owners, utilities companies, and road operations. And there is no current capital funding for these upgrades, but likely could happen in the future. So the image here shows the Railway Lane entrance with the green dot on the top left. Here's a plan view of that same dot, and it shows the opportunity for parking, educational spaces, what we're calling a discovery walk, which is a short walk for people that are less able to get deeper into the site and want to do get a quick snippet of what North of the Nith could offer. And things like a place for a school bus to park, a trailhead on the bottom corner. The circle on the bottom left corner was the same circle from this image here, just to give you a sense of orientation. We did explore also the Railway Lane entrance, and this was mentioned as a recommendation from actually from Chuck Beach quite late in the process. And we do think that because access is one of the biggest challenge to the site, that protecting for all possible ways to access the site is important. This does have challenges. You can see the access to the current transfer station on the top, and would require some modifications to the fencing, but it would maintain operational access. And this image shows a trail coming in along the top of bank and some additional parking spaces. So a little bit more challenging of an entrance point than Railway Street, but something that we highly recommend you protect for in the future. The master plan includes a whole series of non-site specific guidelines, so things like trails, wayfinding, interpretive signage, lookouts and observation points, Trail switchbacks and slope stabilization, those are things that you would be designed by an engineering consultant or a landscape architect. Boardwalks and indigenous placekeeping. So here's a picture of this is what we call the master plan or the demonstration plan. This shows the full build out, and again, the primary trail network. The last part of the master plan, and I'm about to wrap up here with a few more slides, is the implementation strategy. So the implementation strategy outlines the short, medium, and long-term projects, and each project has a project lead, the partners are named, and it includes a series of high-level cost ranges. It's set up, as I mentioned, as a phased approach, and generally the concept for implementation is to move east-west, north-south. And if you remember that slide at the beginning with the polka dots, the Amrise land, the Amrise potential extraction areas in the south. So our recommendation is you phase in from the north. It's also, the north part of the site is the least sensitive areas. The projects aren't funded yet, and this master plan and this implementation strategy provides the framework to establish funding and to develop the capital plan. Delivery does really rely on collaboration with the GRCA, First Nations, the community partners, and other organizations. So here's a snapshot of the full list of projects here. So the phasing of short and medium and long term allow the county to move forward incrementally, aligning projects when funding opportunity arise, when partnership opportunity arise, and to address future site conditions. So this is a kind of a visual map that takes those projects and maps them on the site. And you can really see how the majority of them are clustered from the north side, and it sort of moves southward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Committee, any questions? Councillor Howes?
Thank you very much, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation. It's a lot. It was very thorough. It made for very, very interesting portion of my Sunday reading. And I really appreciate the details. This project has evolved from what I originally envisioned and what others may have originally envisioned. And I'm wrapping my head around why it's evolved. It's a much more complex project, but I understand why. I had some people reach out to me over the weekend with some, what I thought were some good questions specific to this, and I'd like to ask them of you. I have other questions later for staff, but one of the questions that was sent to me was if you could talk a little bit about, from your experience with other projects like this, how do pedal assist e-bikes fit into this type of multi-use world? And, obviously, there's discussion about restricting dirt bike and quad access. I'm going to talk to Stacy about that later. Heads up, Stacy. But there are people who rely a lot on pedal assist e-bikes, and I don't even completely understand the difference on the speeds of different e-bikes, but I do know that with some aging populations, that's a factor. My second question for you is, could you talk a little bit about, you said the words multi-use compatibility. Mm-hmm. And I know that the portion of this mapping that's targeted for serious mountain bike users is perhaps not the number of kilometers originally envisioned, but can you talk more about how different type of trails can suit different users without everybody getting tangled up?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, so the first question, pedal assist e-bikes. I have to say, it is a new and emerging form of movement recreation, and I know that my wife's parents have logged something like 4,000 kilometers on their pedal assist e-bikes last year. It's really getting them out and into nature. I think we're still we're still struggling with this concept in Toronto, where I work, because it does fall in the gray areas of a motorized vehicle or non-motorized vehicle, and I don't know what actually defines that. You are more seeing them on the type of paved paths than you are in the sort of single track or double track areas that we would likely see at north of the Nith. I think in the same way that, we haven't really put our heads to this because we haven't been asked the question yet, so I'm just kind of speaking from my own experience. I worked for a long time in the Lower Don Valley, and there's some similarities, but there's also some differences. The main difference is that there are a lot of pedal assist bikes in the Lower Don Valley in Toronto, but they're much wider trails. They're 3-meter wide trails, and they're paved. So I think with the master plan, it might need a fresh look to see if any of the trails could be wider. We did hear no paved trails, but perhaps there might be some sort of gravel aggregate materials or other materials that would accommodate a motorized pedal e-bike. I don't have an answer for you. These are my thoughts, yeah. And, I think really you don't want to exclude any potential users. And in the same way that the trails likely will have little signs that show mountain bike priority or pedestrian priority, there's no reason why, if, say, through one of the recommendations is a trails committee group, and maybe it's batted down to them that could another sign be e-bike assist trail? I don't know. Yeah. I guess this also touches on your second question, which is interesting. How do you mix all these different people? And our thought and our recommendation, and I think what we heard too is there's a candy shop which has the really great technical riding places that's focused on higher speeds and more technical riding. There's a whole bunch of shared trails where they're either single track or double track, and there'll be signage and wayfinding that helps orient people to give them expectations of who you might expect on the trails. But there's also those pedestrian-only trails so that you can have a very slow and safe walk. There are also some challenges with grading and things that would just in nature limit where certain people go. So sorry, I don't have all the answers, but I think the e-bike question is interesting and maybe something that does warrant a little bit more discussion and how it relates to this site, because we did hear very clearly about not overdeveloping, and I'm just afraid that maybe it's finding the right detail for the trail, the right width and the right material with the right signage. Yeah.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. 3 questions to the presenter, and I'll echo Steve Howe's comments. You did a nice job, very thorough, so congratulations on that. How big is the site? Because I've seen 344 acres, I've seen 436 acres. I'm thinking that's quite a difference. So how big is the site?
Okay, so we did increase the size of the site after, so you might have seen different numbers. The site area was increased after phase 1. Penman's Pass was included. And I've got Phil, the number I've got is it's just shy of 400 acres, and that includes the operational zone.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just shy of 400 acres. Okay, because like I said, I've seen 344, I've seen 436.
Yeah, so Penman's was added after phase 1, after we heard that connection's really important. It was added into the site area.
You mentioned school bus. When I hear the word school bus, I think of washrooms, public restrooms. Now, I don't know I'm trying to think, my wife and I, we travel quite a bit. Everywhere we go, we'll hit every state park in the area. Currently, we've done 3 so far where I'm at. And I'm just trying to think, I don't recall off the top of my head any state park that I've been in that doesn't have a restroom. Do you see that as a possibility?
Yeah,
should we-
Councillor,
should
yeah,
we
we
be
do,
putting in there?
on slide, one of the slides, we show a close-up of the entrance hub, and it does have a suggestion for washrooms. It's currently, servicing would be a challenge down there, so we think some sort of low-impact washrooms would be a great idea.
Okay, yeah, just given the size of it and all that, and I think it will be a destination park for
Yeah.
sure, so I think that's a must. And then the last question, Mr. Chair, through you to the presenter. You said in your presentation, we want to balance recreation with nature conservation. And in the master plan, I'm going to quote, it says, the landfill provides an ideal setting for mountain biking without encroaching on sensitive environmental areas. When I hear these statements, I feel like there's an implication that you're implying that mountain biking is environmentally destructive or certainly not environmentally friendly. I'm not sure if that's true or not. And I'm just wondering if you could kind of flesh that out a little bit. Why you've if what I'm saying is true, if that's the implication. I mean, when I first read it, I was a little bit disappointed. I felt like when the 2 kilometers of mountain biking were pushed off to the landfill, it was almost like, okay, keep it over there because it's going to destroy the whole area. So can you just kind of flesh that out for me? Because I know we'll be talking about this later on.
Yeah, no, so it's absolutely not the, I think the two, with nature conservation, one of the basic principles is by providing a pathway, you're actually keeping people, you're protecting what you want by providing access to it and encouraging them to follow the path. So it's no, they're by no means incompatible. The idea of the mountain bike park trail is that because when we started the project, BCC, we understood was a key partner. They had already developed some ideas for the site. Because of where it's located, the capped landfill within the site, it's an easier place to develop more quickly and just jump on the energy of the Brant Cycling Club right from the starting point. So it's already has great topography. There are some restrictions about, you can only go up, you can't go down, and there's some monitoring wells that need to be protected, but it provides the opportunity for just a great first kind of project. And it's not and the master plan states it quite clearly, it is not the only opportunity for mountain biking in these lands.
Okay, thank you. No, I understand there's more trails later on, but we're way past this. But if I were starting this, I would have started with a bike trail going around the whole circumference and then working from there. But like I say, we're far past that point. But I appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Councillor
Councillor.
Bell. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just said thank you, Councillor. Yeah.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to our presenter, 2 questions. I attended one of the meetings you had, and there was a map on there. It's page 251 of our report. It shows a chunk of land on the southeast side of the Nith.
Yeah.
Was there any consideration given to access from that area? It coincides with the south end of the development of the Nith Peninsula.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Again, the study area excludes that southern chunk of the study area. So our study is limited to north of that, and we did have a lot of discussion about trying to get that in. Right now, there is a private land owner, and GRCA owns that portion south. So I understand, Phil, that the county is still having ongoing discussions to include that in the master plan. We understand that people want to get to the water, and the south is the place where you get to the water. So in absence of having that south, the master plan does recommend include, and this was a follow-up to our last meeting, one spot where we are suggesting that is the water location without the southern portion.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're following that up, because I think in the future, if we can add it as a section 4 in the report, a future possibility.
Yeah.
It relates to another question I had, which was, have you considered connectivity to Barker's Bush? Because that's another way for people to walk into the site.
So there are some, it is hot in the ANSI region, so the most environmentally sensitive area. So it does have environmental challenges with crossing the river and adding structures crossing the river at that point. Penman's Pass really would be the main connection to Barker's. And so the master plan doesn't include any other connections across the river.
Honestly, I was thinking of somewhere halfway down the Barker's Bush that gets you into the core of the north of the Nith. Final question, the area of the mountain bike park, how does that compare with the mountain biking park in Brantford?
I don't know the Brantford Park that well, but I do know places like the Hydrocut and Turkey Point, and we did some comparisons to Hydrocut. It's nowhere near the same amount of trails as, say, the Hydrocut, but it's also a very different type of landscape than those places because it's right by the river and there are so many sensitive areas. Where we're hitting, I can't remember the numbers, Phil, exactly, was it 20 total kilometers, where Hydrocut's in the 30s, so it's shy of that. But I think the idea here is the combination of the mountain bike park and the shared trails and the secondary mountain bike trails that would create the network that would be attractive for people to come here.
Thank you.
Phil? Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, through the chair, if I can just add, so I don't know, I'm sure that Brant Cycling Club could give us the size of the Brantford Park, but I think this is a little bit bigger in size. I'm not sure how much bigger, but just to give you an idea, like we're within the plan, we've got 20 to 22 kilometers of trail, and we're saying that we figure 19 to 21 of those kilometers of trail can be ridden by bike. And when you look at sort of the breakdown, there's 12 kilometers of shared trail, 1 kilometer only of pedestrian only, 2 kilometers of the bike park, but then another 5 to 7 kilometers we figure of secondary trail. It's not 2 kilometers at build out. And the idea of the bike park as phase 1 is because we can move on it very quickly, and it's a starting point. And I know the cycling club's really, been waiting to get started for a long time. And then we're pushing Penman's Pass, and there's mixed feelings on that, but because we're still in negotiations with Amrise and trying to figure out where they're at, to have a way for the public to access the site that's a safe way in. But it is an expensive undertaking, the Penman's Pass, and that would be your Barker's Bush connection that you were talking about.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I mean, the Rotary Bike Park in Brantford is quite contained, as far as I can see. I couldn't find the area on any of their documentation, but it is there for some pretty challenging cycling, as far as I'm concerned. It's not the kind of cycling I would do. As a pedal-assisted e-biker, I would not go there. But I'd be interested to hear from the Brant Cycling Club what their thinking was in terms of a comparison with that Rotary Bike Park.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions from committee? Councillor Chambers.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to maybe both the gentlemen there. When you started off to do the master plan, did you have a cost in mind before you started, or did you develop the plan and then figure out what it was going to cost?
Through the chair, so it basically is we had ideas from the community. I can tell you that I had in my head a a kind of overall number where I thought it would end up, but at the end of the day, it's a community-driven project, and the projects come out of what the feedback was from the community, and there's a mix, right, of environmental and recreational wants, needs, and requirements, and at the end of the day, we've put forward what we think is the best mix of what we heard from the community that best fits the site. And, you know, it's a master plan, so, you know, just because something's in a phase 1 doesn't mean that phase 2 couldn't move to phase 1 if a certain constraint moved. And we're trying to phase it based on our best guess at how things are going to unfold, right? And there could be a partner that wants to move a phase 3 item, right? And I know some of those ones in phase 3 are big items, but I know that from our First Nations partners, they're very interested in looking at, you know, funding opportunities to be part of it. It's probably been, and I've been doing community projects in the municipalities for 20 plus years, and it's probably been the best input I've ever seen on a community project. There's so much interest and varied interest, and I really appreciate all of the involvement from the community. You can see it in the room, right? I mean, we've got a ton of people here, a ton of people who've been messaging us over the last few weeks. You know, even, you know, Chuck had an idea that slowed us down a month at the end, and we made sure we put it in the plan, even though Roads Ops wants to kill me for putting it in there. So it's really a community project, and the budgets reflect, you know, ultimate build-out. Does it mean we'll end up there? I don't know. But I surely hope that a lot of the projects come to fruition, because it's just like from a general manager point of view and from our staffing point of view, we're so excited about this project. And I think it's really well done. Our consultant did a wonderful job managing a ton of expectations and trying to come up with a plan that fits the community. So we're already geared up to get rolling on the next phase, assuming we can get council's approval. And there's community partners, you know, interested in preserving turtles, building bike trails, you know, taking care of Phragmites. There's so many things sitting there waiting to go once this goes, and it's been quite a 2-year process, and I'm very proud of what we came up with. So thank you.
So the short answer would be no, you haven't looked at the price before you develop the plan. You develop the plan, and then we have to come up with a way to pay for it.
Much better said. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee? Okay, seeing none, how does committee want to motion? Councillor Coleman, to receive? Councillor Bell? No other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so as I stated earlier, we've got a number of delegations here, which is fantastic. The only thing I'm going to ask, everybody has their time at the mic, and I get that. Everybody's going to have 10 minutes. Just please try not to repeat what others have said, if we can. But as I say, everybody's got their time, and everybody's allowed to have their time. I'm going to remind you all as well, when you come for the clerk, please just state your name and your address, and then we will just have your 10 minutes. Gary will set a timer. That way you'll know, you can have a quick glance over there at how much time you have left. And again, thank you everybody for coming and doing this. So we're going to start off with Duncan. Come on up. Duncan Ross from the Brant Cycling Club.
Thank you. So my name is Duncan Ross. I live on Grove Crescent in Brantford, but I am here representing the Brant Cycling Club and many county residents that support outdoor recreation, active living, and the environment. I know that everybody's aware that about a week and a half ago, we launched a letter of support, which outlined our position in detail, and it's obtained about 1,500 signatures at this point in time. So we appreciate the opportunity to have our concerns heard and respectfully request that council receive the draft master plan as information and authorize staff to research a community-led initiative, including delegated authority for the planning, fundraising, implementation, and management of the North of the Nith Single Track Trail Network and Nature Park. So a critical aspect of our concern is a lack of transparency, accountability, and proper governance regarding the resolution adopted by Council on April 27th, 2021, which directed staff to research a stewardship model and report back in 3 months. 5 years later, this has not happened, and the draft master plan does not address this critical component. Instead, the draft master plan outlines a 20-year time frame and a multi-million-dollar cost to be paid by taxpayers. We feel that this is not a fiscally responsible decision when a community-led initiative is a viable alternative that we're willing to bring forward and fundraise for, so that the taxpayers don't have to cover this burden. My presentation will share some important background about myself and the Brant Cycling Club, then lay out our key concerns and a simplified path forward that we can support. So before I go on, I just want to remind everybody why we're here today, and that is simple 12-inch wide dirt trails for people to get some exercise. It's really as simple as that. This represents the smallest environmental impact possible outside of fencing the property off and not allowing anybody to come inside, which I think we would all agree is probably not the best path forward. The vision for this project originated from the fact that there are no sanctioned mountain bike trails in Brant County for residents to enjoy. And this project was intended to address that, but instead the draft master plan includes only 2.3 kilometers of single track, or approximately 10 minutes of riding time. So a little bit about myself. I'd like to share my extensive experience and expertise with trail networks. I've been racing endurance events around the world for the past 2 decades. In 2017 at Ironman Cozumel, I was the first place amateur overall and the 9th place finisher amongst the pro field. I've qualified for multiple world championships in various cycling and triathlon disciplines. I have competed in a number of stage races, including a 7-day BC bike race, which takes place on some of the best single track in the world, which is all developed through community-led initiatives and local cycling clubs. Recently, I was in South Africa for an 800-kilometer, 7-day gravel race through the Karoo Desert. And South Africa also has some of the best single track in the world that is developed through community-led initiatives by local cycling clubs. I want to say my story is not unique. There are many great athletes in this community that live for outdoor recreation, active lifestyle, and connecting with nature. And this is a really important point. We're all nature lovers ourselves. It's just how we choose to connect with nature that is really the differentiator between hikers and other individuals that are passionate about this project as well. So I visited many of the top trail networks in the world, and I studied how they work. I volunteer with several organizations in the community, contributing to outdoor recreation and the environment. The Brant Death Racers Running Group puts on many events focusing on families and building community. I've been involved with the Brant Waterways Foundation for more than a decade and personally raised over $1 million that has been contributed back into the community. I am the lead proponent for the North of the Nith project and have been working on this for more than a decade, along with a number of my colleagues from the Brant Cycling Club and the community that are here today, and I thank them for coming in to join us. Throughout this period of time, over a decade that we've been working on the North of the Nith project, we've collaborated with many user groups like Brantford Nature, seen here, where we took them out for a walk on the property to introduce them, explain what we're trying to do, and try to find some common ground as to how we can work together to bring this to fruition through a community-led initiative. So I'm also the founder and past president of the Brant Cycling Club, which was incorporated in 2015 and has hundreds of members and supporters. We host weekly group rides and events to promote cycling, active living, and community. In 2017, we planned, raised funds, and built a world-class $500,000 bike park in Brantford. The project was an incredible success, with the community coming together to help. Over the years, I've led many, and here's the park here. I can address the size question if we'd like afterwards. Over the years, I've led many youth mountain bike programs down at the bike park, as you can see here, to introduce kids to an active lifestyle and nature. The problem with the program that we've suffered is, yes, we do have the bike park, but we don't have a larger trail network with sanctioned mountain bike trails where we can take the kids to take the next step. So we have been limited with this program, but as you can see, hundreds of kids have gone through this program. We also have a trail committee that helps maintain and clean up trails. And here's an example of one, just a couple pictures for you of what things look like. Obviously, a lot of trash cleanup. And I'd like to acknowledge the Grand Valley Trail Association and Tony Kelly, who's here. Our group does a lot of collaboration with Tony and the Grand Valley Trail Hiking Group. So we work with them to go out and maintain trails and help them out. And it's been a wonderful collaboration, and we really appreciate you being here today, Tony. Professionally, I have a degree in entrepreneurial management with a specialization in community-led initiatives. I'm a partner at BFL Canada, a leading risk and insurance services firm with 28 offices across Canada. My practice focuses on public entity, i.e. municipalities, national not-for-profits, sports, and construction. My clients include some of the largest land trust, environmental not-for-profits, outdoor recreation resorts, national sporting organization, and large construction companies. I deal with land negotiations, license agreements, and similar topics on a weekly basis. I am considered an expert in this space and know it like the back of my hand. So where have we been? As I mentioned, following years of consultation and collaboration, we presented to council first back in April 27th of 2021. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to watch this delegation, as there are many important points that were raised. In particular, I'd like to focus on a comment that Councillor Mark Laferriere had made, and he acknowledged that the BCC had been seeking input for years prior to this presentation, and that we had incorporated feedback into our plan. We have literally done everything we could possibly do to collaborate with other user groups and make this project a success. And council supported our proposal and authorized staff to work with the BCC to research next steps, including finalizing a location, reviewing the lease and stewardship agreements, and undertaking community engagement. The motion was intended to include a 3-month timeline, but here we are 5 years later. From a procedural and governance standpoint, many concerns arise with this. Council approved a motion and provided official direction, but it has not been honored. As far as we know, a community-led initiative has not been reviewed by staff. We have asked repeatedly for this, but have not received any explanation. What is more troubling is that we were told by staff a few months after this initial delegation that the legal department was reviewing a stewardship agreement and it would be sent over to us in the following weeks to be signed. But this never occurred. So we don't know what happened, but clearly something has changed. So where are we now? 5 years since the delegation, and we're still a long way from seeing anything meaningful completed. We keep hearing that it is complicated and it will take time, but it doesn't need to. This has become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's become too complicated, too expensive, and too slow-moving. In the meantime, we have lost out on millions of dollars of potential fundraising opportunities. We could have already raised enough funds to cover the cost of a simple trail network and nature park and completed the work. So our ask is we respectfully request that council receive the draft master plan as information and authorize staff to research a community-led initiative model, including delegated authority for the planning, fundraising, implementation, and management of the North of the Nith single-track trail network and nature park, with oversight provided by senior staff, and report back to council by June 1st, 2026. The June date is really important for us, as we need to have an answer on this prior to the October election, as we can't have this decision put forward to a third council. And it's important to note that we do understand that the Brant Cycling Club will not be the lead organization on this, but rather an umbrella organization that can represent the interests of all the user groups. So, a simple path forward, we find that this project, it doesn't need to be so complicated, and we're simply asking for some dirt trails, as I mentioned earlier. We've come up with a simplified approach that requires only 5 steps from each side to get this project moving. As you see here, very quickly, research and approve a community-led initiative model, fence off the operational area, execute the license agreements, finalize the ECA, and provide appropriate oversight. I'll skip over this one, but you can see the slides there just to finish up very quickly. So my last slide, the community is simply asking for a little bit of trust and a chance to prove ourselves. I hope that I've demonstrated that we have the experience, the expertise to successfully lead this project with fellow user groups through community-based not-for-profit. We have a simplified implementation plan that will ensure this process is a success. And I want to point out that there's very little risk associated with this model. If it's not successful, the dirt trails will simply grow over and go back to a naturalized state. A community-led model is a fiscally responsible approach that does not burden taxpayers. We're simply asking for a little bit of trust from our elected officials and a chance to prove ourselves. And I thank you very much for the time.
Okay, thank you for that. Go. Any questions from committee? If we could just get the presentation off there so I can see Councillor Miller and Councillor Kyle. There we go. Any questions from committee? Councillor Chambers.
Just through you, Mr. Chairman, to the delegation. I'm not sure the name, but there's a cycling group that is organized south of us, and they have trails through Long Point properties.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you're familiar with that group and if you've used those trails down there in conjunction with Long Point. And I'll have a second question.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Through the chair to the committee, yes, so I'm very familiar with the Turkey Point Mountain Bike Club. I speak with them on a regular basis. We've ridden the trails down there, and like all the neighboring network mountain bike groups, I have had communications with them and consultations.
And the second question, if I might, just asking for a comment. I know that that group, the Turkey Point, whatever it is called.
Mountain Bike Club.
They use some of the properties of Long Point Conservation Authority that are forested properties and essentially undeveloped properties, but they use the properties for trails. And it's a very, very simple arrangement that they have. And I know that the group down there has had problems with the authority off and on, but by and large, they basically look after their own trails, and actually they provide funds to the Conservation Authority for the use of the trails. And I'm just wondering if that, if you want to comment a little bit more about that, if you're familiar with how they do it down there.
Thank you. Through the chair. Yes, very much. That's what we were originally trying to model this area after. I want to make the point that, again, the genesis of this project was because there are no sanctioned mountain bike trails in Brant. So inevitably what happens is mountain bikers end up on other trails and there's user conflict. And as population continues to grow, we're trying to avoid this. This is a perfect site for a lot of reasons that I won't get into. So that was the original idea. Now, and it's a fantastic model. It is very simplistic, and it's been very successful in Turkey Point and a number of other areas as well for these trail networks to exist. I'd like to mention Copeland Forest, which is a 4,400 acre property up in Oro-Medonte near Horseshoe Valley. So that's a 4,400 acre property that's owned by the Ministry of Natural Resources, I believe, and there's an organization there that represents called the Friends of Copeland Forest. And basically that's more of the model that we're looking at, because it has hikers, naturalists, cyclists, business interest neighbors. So it's more of an umbrella organization, and they manage trails within this 4,400 acre property. And so that's probably more similar to what this has evolved into. And that property is also important to note. The majority of it is designated as an ANSI, and there are significant single track trails throughout this property, as is a number of other ANSI properties in the province where there are trails. So it can be done in an environmentally sensitive way. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions to Duncan. Duncan, I'm not sure where we would be seeing this master plan if the Brant Cycling Club hadn't come forward 5 years ago. Is it the plan of the Brant Cycling Club to monopolize this property, use it exclusively for mountain biking if you were able to garner, if you were to control it, or would you be able to share this with other groups?
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Through the chair, definitely not. We heard 5 years ago from council that they wanted us to collaborate with other user groups, and as I showed in the picture, we've been out with Brant for Nature. We work with Grand Valley Trail Association. We've been liaisoning with the Brant Waterways, who we'll hear from shortly. We've tried to work with every other group, and we want these other groups to be involved in this. We think that it's going to be a better project at the end of the day. But there is an important concept here in the sense that the whole idea originally was to have some mountain bike trails where people could go and mountain bike so they don't end up on other hiking trails, like as an example at Apps Mill. There's a lot of hiking trails there, therefore you shouldn't be mountain biking there. There's nowhere for these people to go. And in order to make that meaningful so that people are actually gonna go to utilize this and it's gonna be worth investing a significant amount of our time, fundraising effort and everything else, we need to have a certain level of trails that we can offer to people. And I think right now the 2.3 kilometers falls well below that. And in addition to that, I just want to mention as well that the multi-use trails that are for pedestrians and whatnot, I can appreciate the fact that they're extending the fact that people can come and ride those trails, but practically speaking, nobody's going to go and ride a flat multi-use trail on a mountain bike. That's not kind of the concept behind it. And I would say that in Brantford and Brant County, we have over 100 kilometers of multi-use trails. We have fantastic hiking trails. We do not have any mountain bike trails. So I think that that concept needs to be kept in mind. And to answer the question again specifically, definitely we want to work with everybody. We're not looking to monopolize it, but really we need to have something tangible enough that is going to be worthwhile for for folks to go and ride the bikes there. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna go Councillor House, Councillor Kyle, Councillor Bell.
Mr. Chair, I'm okay right now. My question or comments are better later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, my question is kind of further to Councillor Miller's question, through you to Duncan. So I guess my question is, what types of groups would you be open to collaborating with? Because what I'm hearing is the trails would not be conducive to any sort of other recreation outside of mountain biking. So I just am wondering, when you say that you're wanting to collaborate with other groups, is that just other groups who would be doing environmental work, or is it other actual user groups who might be interested in using those trails? Because I think there's a distinct difference, and I think that's maybe what Councillor Miller might have been getting at as well.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle, through the chair. My apologies if I gave the impression that we weren't looking to work with other user groups. I think we definitely are, and we want to have, you know, some hiking trails and everything else in there for those specific user groups. So we're not saying that we don't want to. My point was just that there needs to be a certain number of, call it 40 kilometers of mountain bike trail to make this meaningful for us to sink our teeth into and for it to be a success down the road. So 100% we're open to working with all of those user groups, and definitely the level of environmental remediation that needs to be taking place on this property and the opportunities for groups like Brantford Nature and also ourselves who are environmentalists, that's something that we really want to see, and there's a ton of potential for that. So we're open to all suggestions of working through these, working with these other groups through somebody potentially like the Brant Waterways Foundation that is an umbrella organization that represents all of their interests.
Councillor Kyle, you good with that? Okay. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Duncan. Duncan, I asked a question about the bike park at Brantford. You said you had an answer.
Yes, so the bike park is 2 acres approximately, the footprint of the land there. Now, if I may just extrapolate a little bit on that, this is something that we've tried to communicate for a while, is that this wasn't, like, we're not trying to build another bike park. It's a very specific thing. What we were looking for always was a trail network, and so somehow this has kind of been lost, I guess, in translation.
So a bike park similar to the Brantford Rotary Park in the county, you think isn't necessary?
Not on that scale, no, because I think there's one in Brantford that if folks are interested in that, it's close by. Really what we're missing right now is a trail network. And so it's trails, not what the bike park is in essence is, you know, some dirt jumps, some skill features, and a pump track versus we're looking for trails specifically.
Well, I think there are a lot of people in our community would find that very attractive. Young people, like the people you showed in some of your slides, would find that to be very attractive, and if it's available in the county, they would use it in the county rather than preferentially going to Brantford. Second question, the Brant Cycling Club, how many members as a percentage of the cycling club live in the county?
That is a good question. I don't have the specific numbers right now for that, but I can find that out for you. But I would say there's a substantial number of county residents that, and not only club members, but also that folks that have had their kids come through the youth mountain bike program and or just support what we're trying to accomplish in general.
Okay. Final comment, question if I may. You commented that you're expecting an answer after 3 months back in 2021. Would you not agree that it's a rather more complex situation that has emerged? For example, Amrise and their influence on the design. And related to that, I think that these last couple of years have thrown up lots of competing interests for the use of this land, not singularly, not exclusively for cycling tracks. Would you agree?
So a number of questions there. The competing interests, is that the last point?
That was the last point, yeah.
Yeah, competing interests. Certainly, I've become aware that there are some competing interests. We've done our best to work with everybody and have those conversations in a productive manner and proactively work through those together. But I understand that possibly there's one group in particular that has competing interests. So I can't speak much more to that because I haven't heard from them specifically on what exactly those are to work through those. Apologize, what was the first part of the question?
Well, I'm just saying that there are competing interests, and don't you think it's appropriate that more time is taken to thoroughly investigate those competing interests, and particularly Amrise, who have kind of thrown a shadow over a good chunk of this land, and that it should not be, it's inappropriate for the county to just think exclusively for one user when we have multiple users in the county.
Yes, and again, if, through the chair, if I may clarify, we're not saying that we're looking for, I think we've been pretty clear to say that we're not looking for one user group. We have worked with all of these other user groups to come up with a plan that is, that makes sense, right? That is, it's not gonna be able to appease everybody, but in the broader scheme of what we have going on with our trail network in Brantford and Brant County, that it makes sense. So we've worked with all of these groups. As far as it taking longer, for sure there has been some complicating factors with this. To give you one example though, where we feel as though the communication hasn't been had, is that we were aware of these gravel rights probably 8 months before it ever became aware from a staffing level. So without having that community, without having that conversation back and forth, we lost 8 months of time. Now, it is a complicating factor, but I think that there's ways forward that we can still get this thing moving. The point about the 3 months was simply a procedural point where that's what the official decision was, and we never got any feedback as to how that was changing, and it just keeps evolving and turning into other things, I think, is our concern. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee? Just one quick one I have to you, Duncan, and you've stated a couple times that you're looking for approximately 40 kilometers of trail. How many acres would 40 kilometers of trail take?
It really depends on the topography of the land and whatnot, so it'd be difficult for me to give you that specific to this site on account of one of the principles of sustainable trail building is that we want to get an idea of what's there. Obviously, you don't want to put a trail through an environmentally sensitive area. So really, as far as the environmental question comes as trail building, it comes down to the density of trail in one particular area. And so it really depends on the environmental impact and what's there.
Okay, let me rephrase it a bit. Would you be looking at potentially this 40 kilometers of trail looping the entire piece of land, or would it be one section kind of looping back and forth?
Yeah, so it would utilize as much of the property as possible, as far as not having it, like having it in a 7-acre area. From a usability standpoint, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You would want those trails to be out around the property as much as possible, if that helps. I would say, just kind of a rough number off the top of my head, I think a reasonable amount of density, so being environmentally friendly for 40 kilometers of trail, possibly about 100 acres, give or take, but again, it depends on the lay of the land.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
No other questions from committee? Okay, how would committee like to proceed? Councillor Howes?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we receive this as information, and if that's seconded, I'd like to speak to it for a minute.
Mayor Bailey will second that. To the motion, Councillor Howes?
Thank you. I understand, first of all, let me say this project is very near and dear to my heart. I was one of those dirt bikers 40 years ago, making some of those trails. And I understand Duncan's frustrations. Duncan and I sat down for breakfast the first time we met. It was 7 years ago, right about now. It was about 6 months after I was elected the first time. And Duncan and I sat down for breakfast, and he asked me if I could get involved in supporting their use of, more intense use of Barker's Bush for mountain biking. And in that conversation, I suggested the old gravel pit across the river would be a good solution because of my familiarity with it from the dirt bike days. And I thought that this would be a quick, cheap solution to make good use of the old gravel pit and give the mountain bike group, the intense mountain bike group, the endurance athletes, a good place to go. And since then, this project has changed immensely. It's become a lot more complicated. You suddenly have a gravel pit company that may or may not want to start using their license to extract gravel again. You've got Six Nations consultation issues, you've got environmental issues, and you've got a whole lot of other residents who suddenly go, we'd like to use the gravel pit too. And so what started 40 years ago as maybe 100 guys on dirt bikes, then was gonna be a few hundred endurance athlete, intense mountain bikers. It's now become hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of potential local users who could benefit from this beautiful park. And I'm looking forward to seeing how our staff can drive the future of this project. So that's my reasons for requesting that we receive it for information.
Okay. So we've got that motion, we've got it seconded. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thanks, Duncan. Thank you. Okay, next is Dana Darnborough. Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.
Your name and address for the clerk, and you've got 10 minutes.
Dana Darnborough, 35 Slater Street, Brantford, Ontario. I am here today on behalf of Brant Waterways Foundation in order to speak to North of the Nith. Brant Waterways Foundation envisions a community in which everyone benefits from the connection of our healthy waterways and trails and works collaboratively in order to protect, preserve our natural resources. Our purpose as an organization is to provide leadership, advocacy, and funding for projects in Brant County, Brantford, Six Nations of the Grand that protect, restore, enhance, and preserve the natural heritage of the Grand River, its waterways and tributaries such as the Nith, and offer recreational opportunities, a healthy environment, and sustainable use. We're here today, I am here today, asking county staff, who we recognize strongly have made significant progress in the movement of this project. I want to thank county staff for the hard work that they've put into the development of the master plan. I also want to thank the Brant Cycling Club for bringing this to the attention of everyone here today. We believe that this is a generational opportunity for our community, and we believe that we can see great short-term impact with the acceptance of the master plan with these three amendments: a review of community-led initiatives and the potential operating models for this property for report back to council by June. We also wish to see more inclusive and purposeful mountain bike trails developed within the property. And we also recommend prioritizing pulling in the parking off of Railway Street as a phase 1 initiative and deferring the Penman's Pass remediation. On community-led models, Brant Waterways Foundation has been in support of community-led models for North of the Nith since the project began. We believe that there are a number of benefits that go along with that, including the reduced burden on taxpayers. We believe that this opens up the door for significant grant opportunities, and as a foundation for us, it also means that we can make a more wholesome fundraising campaign around the holistic approach for north of the Nith. It also gives us the opportunity to take advantage of eager volunteers. We do believe that this can also add capacity for the county. We believe that we can help reduce implementation times and remediation throughout the property and increase community engagement with volunteer work parties that give residents the opportunity to give back, find meaning and purpose within the property itself. On single-track mountain bike trails, our natural spaces offer us the opportunity to reset and reflect. It's not just the physical well-being, but also the mental well-being. These opportunities often come through recreation. Today, there is a gap in the community when it comes to single-track mountain bike trails. So what we are asking is for us to continue to look at enhancing and providing single-track within the property. This improves quality of life for individuals and residents who have to travel and cannot take the opportunity closer to home. We do believe it'll mitigate much of the environmental impact and risk that are associated with the informal trails that exist on the property today. Finally, we do believe it'll improve the safety and recreational opportunities for everybody within the property with purpose-built managed trail networks. Now, I do want to pause here and I want to say thank you to county staff. We do recognize that in the most recent report, there has been more inclusive language around single-track mountain bike trails. Originally, in previous reports, we had 2 kilometers of trails on the Cap landfill. Now we are recognizing potential for another 9 kilometers, potentially 20 kilometers overall. This falls much short, obviously, in what the Brant Cycling Club envisioned, but perhaps this is a more pragmatic approach to begin recreation within the property. On the reprioritization of phases, our purpose as an organization is to help connect people to our healthy waterways and our natural heritage. In the way that the plan is currently developed, we do believe that Penman's Pass is going to limit the ability for many residents to connect with this property. We know that parking at Penman's Pass is quite limited. And even with the high cost for remediation, we do feel that many residents will have a difficult time navigating that trail. Instead, what we are recommending is bringing forward the Railway Street parking as a gravel parking lot in phase 1. That will give more residents the opportunity to access the property. It will also provide a more holistic view and a contiguous trail development for that area because we do expect this to be the primary entrance for the property. This will also provide earlier access and assessment for areas north and to the west, including the dunes, the wetlands where we know much of the invasives exist today, and opportunities for reforestation in the north. In closing, we do want to recommend that Council accepts the North of the Nith Master Plan with the following amendments. A review of community-led initiatives and their operating models to come back to County Council by June. Continued purposeful inclusion of single-track mountain bike trails within the property. And to prioritize parking and access for residents as a phase 1 initiative and to defer Penman's Pass. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dana. Questions from committee? Can we just, okay. Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Dana. Dana, thanks for coming in and sharing your vision and your views and those of the Brant Waterways Foundation. I appreciated some of the dialogue that we had at the last stakeholders meeting, which I thought was a very positive meeting. You submitted a letter in accompaniment to your delegation submission, and you've raised some good points, and I'm glad they're being heard, and I'm glad that staff is hearing them, everybody's hearing them. I had a specific question from your letter dated February 11th. And it was the fourth paragraph, and it starts with, initiated through the Brant Cycling Club in 2021 and informed in large part by community feedback gathered through Brant Waterways TIRA fundraising campaign, the original vision, and it goes on to talk about single track mountain bike trail network. My specific question for you is, has the Brant Waterways Foundation raised money for this project? And if so, are those funds tied to your vision of it being a community-led initiative exclusively?
So, thank you, Councillor, through you, Mr. Chair. So the way I would answer that is the TIRA campaign did start in 2017. Part of that was looking at community feedback and what's missing from an outdoor recreation standpoint. That is where we highlighted that single track and purpose-built mountain bike trails did not exist. With that led to the Barker's Bush conversation, and it ultimately led to north of the Nith. Throughout this process, we have been respectful of the master plan process. We have not created any fundraising campaigns around it. That said, the TIRA campaign was ongoing for, at the time, Barker's Bush trail activities for a number of projects, including the Newport Bridge activities, Barker's Bush, kiosks, and a number of activities in the city itself. With TIRA, we did have funds that were left over, and we have allocated $100,000 to kickstart this initiative at north of the Nith. Much like yourselves, who obviously have a responsibility to make sure that tax dollars go to the greatest need for the community, we would like to see this go to where we believe it'll create the most impact. So the answer to your question is no. I think that money will still be potentially on the table for this, but the reality is we believe that there is a much greater impact we can make through the development of this entire master plan.
Councillor House, follow up?
Yeah, quick follow-up. Thank you, Dana. And in a minute, if you could just explain for anybody who's watching and for me what a TIRA is, or what a TIRA campaign is. And then, but I appreciate the clarification. So the Brant Waterways Foundation has not raised specific funds for north of the Nith, although some funds exist that could be applied, and we sure appreciate that. I don't think you answered the question on whether or not those funds are tied to whether it's a community-led initiative.
I would say those funds are not specifically tied to whether it's a community-led initiative. I think the issue then becomes to what capacity and what extent can we raise additional funds? Right. The TIRA campaign itself is trail improvement and river access. So that was looking at how do we ensure access for the waterways, take-ins, put-outs, and trails overall across the community. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee? Seeing none, how do we want to proceed? Councillor House?
Move to receive as information.
Okay, seconder? Councillor McAlpine? No further questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Dana. Next up, we have Laurel and Ed from Brant for Nature. Again, state your name and address for the clerk, and we have 10 minutes whenever you're ready.
My name is Ed Wilson. I'm here as a single presenter.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry, I'll repeat that. My name is Ed Wilson. I live on Greenwood Trail in Brantford, Ontario. I am here representing Brant for Nature. I was supposed to have someone, Laurel, join me this morning, but she was unable to attend at the last minute. Brant for Nature, we're a fairly new group. We're new to the party, and I'm very impressed with the work that's gone in by the Cycling Club and by Brant Waterways on this project. Our group's been around for 3 years. We just incorporated this year, and we have over 200 members, which I think is testament to how much the community wants to get out and connect with nature. And I listened to the earlier presenters about, you know, their goal is to connect people with nature and get people outside in the environment. That's what we're about. So we share a lot of the same objectives with the groups that have previously presented. Our group was recently honored by a Community Partners award a community impact award from the county. We really appreciate that recognition, and we were really happy to be invited in as community partners on the master plan. One of the things that we focused on in the master plan is in those guiding pillars. The second pillar was about being safe, accessible, and inclusive. We have some concerns with the 12 kilometers of shared trails. In terms of the width of those trails, in terms of the sight lines, we can see some safety concerns, particularly when it comes to the youngest members using the trails, or some of our senior members or seniors in the community, people with disabilities. They need a little bit of a sight line in order to get out of the way if there's a bike approaching. And we're not convinced that that 12 kilometers is going to allow that. There is only 1 kilometer in the entire project marked as pedestrian, and that concerns us. When the community was asked in a survey conducted as part of the master plan what they saw happening on this property or how they saw themselves using it, there were more people who selected walking, hiking than cycling. I think the numbers were 224 for walking and 183 for cycling. So there definitely is an interest in using that property and for walking and for cycling. And I definitely see the need for the mountain biking in the single trail. But when I look at the entire plan, and I hear today that the mountain bike group is looking for 40 kilometers of trails that can do what they want to do, and a pedestrian trail is 1 kilometer. I think that needs a little bit further review. In closing, I'd like to stress that Brantford Nature does very much support the master plan, very much does support the development of the property. However, we don't at this point support the idea of moving this to a community-led initiative. We feel that the county has the skill, the expertise, and the experience to manage this project effectively. And that's it. Thank you. Well under my 10 minutes.
Thank you for that, Ed. Any questions from committee to Ed? Seeing none, how do we proceed? Councilor McAlpine?
Move to receive for information.
Councilor Bell will second that. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Next up, we got Chris Stewart. Thanks, Chris. When you're ready, name and address, and you have your 10 minutes.
Hi, my name is Christopher Stewart. I live at 101 Savannah Ridge Drive in Paris, Ontario. Proud to be the first one from the county to present today. So today I just want to talk about north of the Nith and why it's so important to me. So I'm going to go through a quick history of my cycling, location, tending to the garden, and being part of something bigger that endures time. So first, an introduction. Similar to Duncan, I've been cycling in Brant County all my life. I'm a child of the 80s. That meant every morning when I'd wake up, I'd grab my bike the first thing in the morning and ride around looking for bikes piled up at my friend's house. Once the whole gang was together, we would ride until dusk. In my teenage years, I would begin to compete in the Paris to Ancaster. I've been doing so ever since the second race in 1995. The first race was in 1994. I don't think people have really captured what that means in our community. This is by far the largest cycling race in all of Canada. It's not even comparable. This is a cycling community. We need to understand that this is a cycling community. I've been on my bike my whole life in amongst the Grand River, the Nith. And why I'm here today, why cycling is so important to me at my age. I'm currently in my mid-40s. In 2017, I contracted myopericarditis. Basically, that's myo and pericarditis at the same time. Your heart has 3 different levels. You have your inner level that the blood moves along, your middle level, which is the muscle, and then your outer level, which encases the heart. At the time, I had a viral infection that should have killed me. I'm currently the record holder at the Brantford General Hospital for the highest levels of troponin that they've ever seen in somebody who's actually survived. And I owe all that to my cycling with my strong heart. I've been working with a cardiologist since then. They've been reviewing it, and they cannot believe I'm alive today. So for me, I owe everything to cycling, so I want to fight for this. I want to fight for more trails in my area, specifically mountain biking. Since then, I've also competed in the world's longest mountain bike race, just to prove that I'm still alive and that I can do impossible things. So why this is so important is location, location, location. It's so close, it just needs some love and attention. So I live exactly 800 meters from Barker's Bush. My family's been in our current house for over 15 years. We've been in Paris for 30 years. We've had countless walks through Barker's Bush with our dogs, with my young ones, and we love to walk along the river, and then we walk all the way downtown for a bite to eat, some ice cream, and we also like to stop in Lions Park where my daughters love to play on the equipment there. I ride my bike constantly through Barker's Bush on my way to the other trails in the Paris area. And what I want to say about that is we keep talking about multi-use trails and we need more multi-use trails. This area, believe it or not, in all of Ontario has the 5th most trails of all the counties. The only reason we don't have more is because of the size of the county. If you actually look at the counties who are ahead of us, they're much larger. If you look at the trails that we do have, and then once you take into account the trails that they connect to, by far the largest trail length in all of Ontario. It's not even comparable once you end the border at Cambridge, you can continue past Cambridge, you can go all the way to Hamilton, you can go to Port Dover. There's trails that literally go everywhere, but once you just take what's inside of our borders, it's number 5 in all of Ontario. So we've already made it, but I'm here to expand on that. And specifically today, I'm talking about mountain bike trails. So the biggest thing for me, the way to get started is quit talking about it and begin doing. I know that's a very simple sentence, and I'm not trying to demean what we have to do, but I would like to see something get done. You can see on the left, that's a picture of me in the BC bike race, but in the picture, those are my little girls. They are what I want to do this for. They are the reasons that I want to continue to grow and introduce them to the mountain bike passion that I have. And then you can see on the right, there's a picture of me and my wife doing the Paris to Ancaster. I even roped her into doing it, so it's a big family thing for us. So in summary, in this crazy world with so much out of control, so much bad news, and we do not have any power, influence, or control to change any of that, this is a piece of the community that we do have control over, and we can create an outdoor place for everyone in the community to enjoy. We can be the people that will be looked at years from now that started something bigger than us, and we took the first step. So again, if you guys want to build trails, I'm all for it. If the county wants to pay for them, okay, that would be a great use of my tax money. I'm on board with that. But I am pushing a little bit more of the mountain bike trails. I do have other bikes. There's many disciplines in biking. And like I said, we have a lot of other trails. We're just looking for some sort of a carve out that we can have for mountain bike trails so that we aren't seeing injuries like the previous gentleman before me mentioned. And that's all I have today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Chris. Questions from committee? If we could just get the presentation down so I can see Councillor Kyle, Councillor Miller. Okay, questions from committee? Seeing none, how do we proceed? Mayor Bailey?
Receive, please, for information.
Okay. Counselor Howes will second that. No further questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to jump in here. Simon, you're coming up next, but I've heard a couple times here, can we please make sure our cell phones are off? I've heard a couple of them through. If we could just put them on mute, that would be fabulous and appreciate that. Is that Simon online?
Yes.
Okay. Simon, go ahead, your name and address, and you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
I will not take 10 minutes. My name is Simon Stolarski, and I live at 39 Ralph Newbrook Circle, and it's just backing out to Barker Bush Trail. Just wanted to support the community-led initiative for building mountain bike trails. And being so close and recently retired, I would put my time and effort into building those trails. Have been biking for the last 15 years, mountain biking in Milton, Ontario. We moved to Paris just a few months ago. And I took part in the safety initiatives of Glen Eden, Kelso as a ski patroller and mountain bike ambassador. And that's about it. I'm in support of building more mountain bike trails. And I think the collaboration between different parties to achieve different objectives is always possible. And community-led initiatives are allowing the energy of the community to efficiently move projects forward, taking the nature and community into account. And thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for that, Simon. Any questions for Simon, committee? Seeing none, how do we proceed? Councillor Coleman?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Howe, second that. No further questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Chuck. Okay. Is there a presentation? Okay. We'll get the presentation up there in just a minute for you, Chuck. And when you're ready.
Chuck Beach, 7 Springfield Drive, Brantford. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about this very important project. As you know, I was an ardent supporter of the Climate Change Action Plan in this county. And you probably also know that I work with county staff, city staff, the GRCA, student volunteers, and community groups to plant trees every year as part of the Brant Tree Coalition. Today, I'm representing myself. I should like to mention very quickly that your county tree plant is April the 18th at Rising Park in Glen Morris. Trent Myers and I were actually out 2 weeks ago talking to the Glen Morris Lions Club to get their endorsement. So I think a number of people have stated this. This is a game changer. It really is. It may be the largest environmental restoration opportunity ever taken by the county. Congratulations to the biking group and I guess Councillor Howe for identifying the opportunity. Congratulations to the county for undertaking the project. And finally, I'd like to applaud the project consultant for recognizing the enormity of the project and the enormity of the opportunity. I also appreciate the consultant balancing the needs of all stakeholders. Interestingly, the North of the Nith project supports an international 30-30 objective. Canada is a signatory. And with this project, it recognizes or contributes to Canada's efforts. The federal government has set a goal of conserving 30% of Canada's lands and water by 2030 because science shows that nature needs our help in order to reverse the decline in biodiversity. I'm going to get a little philosophical. Apologies. Genesis 1:26, King James Version. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth. Well, how's that going? How's that going? Well, according to Cornell University, study of last year, since 1970, the bird population has decreased by 2.9 billion in North America. The WWF Living Planet Report 2025 reveals an alarming decline in wildlife populations across Canada, highlighting the needs for conservation, with the impact of humans on the environment, ecosystems, and over 52% of the animals monitored are in decline. I don't believe that's what God intended. I am enamored by the natural environment and the many creatures that live in the environment. And what do these creatures need to survive? Clean air, unpolluted water, and undisturbed habitat. Contrast with our human society needs, which I believe are insatiable. And you councillors might know that better than me, because I'm sure there's constant requests for more. Humans always need more, and the more humans there are, this only exacerbates the problem. More roads, more housing, more healthcare, more schools, more and bigger TVs, more. To me, it always seems the human need trumps, and I use that selectively, the simple needs of the natural environment. So, with this project, my focus quite clearly is the environment. And I thank the consultant for recognizing the importance of that. So, my request number one, prohibit motorized vehicles. Mother Nature is pretty darn good at restoration when left to herself. So I went for a walk this spring on the property, and there are these, there was a vernal pool. A vernal pool is a pool that's there for a short period of time, usually the spring. And in this pool were hundreds, literally hundreds of tadpoles. And then I walked a little bit further away, and then this happened. And I thought, well, all lives matter, but maybe not theirs. So please do what you can to restrict motorized vehicles. I don't know about e-bikes. If they go through vernal pools, get them out of there too. My second request, do not pursue Penman's Pass, whatever. Leave it as it is. It is an expensive, environmentally insensitive project that comes with considerable liability and maintenance. Continue to explore other options. And thank you for taking into consideration the work, my suggestions. I appreciate that. Request number 3. This is Amrise. Seems to their mining and or aggregate licensing seems to really put a stickler into this whole situation. I don't know this. You folks would know better. I know the staff might be somewhat frustrated in dealing with Amrise. Is there a spot for political assistance? I don't know. I don't know. But if there is, I'd urge you to take it. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks as always, Chuck. Any questions from committee? Seeing none. Mayor Bailey?
Receive as information, please.
Councillor Coleman seconds that. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, Jeff? Again, welcome. Your name and address, and you've got 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jeff Leader. I live at 18 Forbes Street in Glen Morris, Brant County. I've listened to a lot today, and I've learned a lot, and hopefully what I've written before I've come here addresses a lot of this. I kind of want to speak to everybody, the bike clubs, the nature clubs, the counselors, the staff, and I'm just going to give a quick bit about myself and a little bit of my background and kind of where I am sort of today and with this project and what I've learned along the way. I've been a resident of Brant County for over 20 years, and I'm a very active volunteer with several organizations within Brant and the Brantford communities. I've also been working in environmental consulting for over 25 years. I'm working primarily in aggregates, landfills, and contaminated sites, and hydrogeology. I grew up mountain biking up and down the Niagara Escarpment from Burlington to Dundas. I did this for transportation, to get to work, to get to school, or just to play. I also free climbed parts of the escarpment. In the early 1990s, we learned that there were trees that were ancient, old-growth trees along the Niagara Escarpment. They were cedars, about 1,000 years old. And from this, we learned, and we looked at the escarpment differently and changed behaviors. We no longer climbed in those areas. I also rode my mountain bike and my dirt bike at the clay pits, if anyone knows that. Unbeknownst to everyone, there was Jefferson salamander populations nearby. As a result, about 15 years ago, the city of Burlington began closing the road every March to allow the salamanders to migrate across. Again, we now look at that area differently and change behaviors. I would like to think we look at things differently when we have more knowledge and awareness, that we may take an informed approach, similar to a simple decision-making process where we gather information, assess the information, and then make an informed decision. Now the north of the Nith. Contrary to a recent newspaper article, this is not just a former gravel pit and landfill site. I first heard about this property in the spring of 2023. In 2024, I made several visits to the site with Brantford Nature and Freshwater Conservation Canada. In the same year, I brought out 2 respected professional botanists to visit the property. I also spent time in the Brant County Museum and Archives researching the history of the aggregate operations. I also undertook a desktop study reviewing aerial imagery, geology, all trails app data, and historical documentation regarding the site. I knew right away there was mineral rights on that site. This information that I collected was relayed to the county and their consultant, and some of it is contained in the appendices. And I'll be candid, I probably didn't indicate the mineral rights, where maybe I should have. Anyways, what I've learned so far, this property is very unique. Physically, the property is a peninsula of the Nith River surrounded by riparian zones, wetlands, floodplain, and the cold waters of Charlie Creek, also springs and seeps and tufa deposits. Along the river valley slopes is Carolinian forest, which has been designated as an area of natural and scientific interest. Atop of the valley slopes are remnant workings of a large-scale aggregate operation, prairie and savanna-like habitats, a closed landfill, man-made wetlands, a groundwater-fed stream, forested areas, and sand barrens, referred to as dunes in the plan. Overall, there may be more than 20 significant wildlife habitats within this project area, which tells me that ecological land classifications and environmental impact studies are very important to ensure that trails do not impact the habitats. We will hopefully look at areas differently when we have more information. So someone asked me the other day, what excites me about this project? And two things came to mind. One is the potential for a wetland type called a fen, and the other one is the sand barrens again, called the dunes in the plan. So in Brant County, we have two types of wetlands that dominate, I guess our wetland features is marshes and swamps. But we don't have fens. And what is a fen? It's a peat accumulating wetland with mineral-rich groundwater or surface water, which also supports a high level of biodiversity. There's a fen in Brantford and a fen just north of Glen Morris in Waterloo Region, both of which are areas of natural and scientific interest. Put it this way, fens are rare and important habitats. During the aggregate operation, groundwater management was required. Groundwater was intercepted along the northern edge of the property into two small dugout ponds and redirected away from the operations via ditching. These two small ponds are now essentially wetlands with mineral-rich groundwater flowing in and out, which in this geological setting has the potential to create wetland fens. Plant communities are already appearing that are associated with fens. We see greater fringe gentian, jointed rush, little green sage, and Calms lobelia. Now the sand barrens. Everyone here should know where Paris Plains Church Road is. Part of the name reminds us of the plains and that landscape, which we can still see. But we've lost the plant communities to 200 years of agriculture. Remarkably, the plants are still present on the North of the Nith property, and in particular in the sand barrens. These types of plants are highly specialized and thrive in nutrient-poor sandy soils that are high in calcium. We see an assortment of extremely rare to very rare species such as dwarf chinkapin oak, tall boneset, Great Plains lady's tresses, fragrant macewort, and hairy bug seed. To name a few, the later of which was found in the same location as when it was last reported in the 1990s. If these two features were natural, they would be considered areas of natural and scientific interest. Again, we look at things differently when we have more knowledge. In closing, I'm in favor of a balanced approach to a single track and pedestrian trails that do not significantly impact the natural habitats and that support the survival and reproduction of our native species. But we all need to know what is present before trail planning can really begin. Keeping in mind monitoring periods for some species can vary, as much as 2 years in the case of snakes. So phase 1 of the North of the Nith and open spaces master plan seems very reasonable to me. Turning the landfill cap into a recreational development is an excellent project, along with the parking lot. And it is a textbook phased approach. By starting there, we'll be able to take a look at the other parts of the property and get a better understanding of what's there with the species and the habitats and how everything functions, and then we can start putting trails in. I like the idea of connecting trail networks. However, Penman's Pass may be more of a challenge than it's worth, although it's already actively used as a trail. I thank Council for choosing the approach to commission a master plan, and I thank county staff along with the consultant for putting together a high-level plan that may allow future generations to enjoy the ecological landscapes and species diversity that this property affords. I expect all parties will continue to identify the significant wildlife habitats and plant and species communities before trails are constructed. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Jeff. Any questions from committee? Seeing none, how do you want to proceed? Councillor Howes?
Move to receive as information.
Thank you for that. Seconder? Councillor Bell. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our delegations. I just want to say one quick comment. It's been a long time since we've had this many delegations come to a committee or council, and I think that just proves the importance of this, and I think it also proves that the community is getting involved with this. So anybody who had a presentation today, I want to thank you. on behalf of this committee and the county. And yeah, so again, thank you very much for coming in. And all these, everything that come in today will also be put forward to, will be received and brought forward to the master plan as well. So we are going to move on now to section number 5, administration and operation and adoption of the previous minutes.
I thought we were going to deal with 8.1 at this point.
Oh, yes, sorry. My apologies. We were going to bring 8.1 up. Yes, we were. Sorry about that. So 8.1 is a staff report, RPT 001-26, North of the North Trails and Open Spaces Master Plan. Stacy, I don't know if you want to add anything else to it or just questions? Any questions for Stacy? Any questions for Stacy? Councillor Coleman will move it to get on the floor. Councillor Howes will second it. And Councillor Howes, appears you have a question.
I'll be quick, Mr. Chair. Quick question to Stacy, two actually. Can you just, because we will be asked, can you speak to, in phase 1, the washroom situation a little bit? I think it was discussed by the consultant, a low-impact washroom, but if you could talk about that a little bit. And the second thing is, and this relates to something Chuck said, in the report it says restrict motorized vehicle access, and we're not talking about the e-bikes right now, we're just talking about internal combustion engine machines. Do we mean prohibit rather than restrict?
Through the chair, yeah, yes. So then going back to the first question about the washroom, so just like any of our other destination parks, we do have obviously structured washrooms, but I think for now we would do the most economical route and just get our porta potties on site.
Any other questions on this report? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we had a lot of presentations, a lot of good information. Before us is the report. How does the information that came forward from the delegations, and I will say that's some of the most top-notch information I've seen from delegations in a while, so congratulations to the delegates. But how do we incorporate what I thought were some pretty good suggestions in those delegations?
Stacy?
Phil's going to come up and address that. Yeah.
Okay.
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, we're going to obviously take everything that came in today into consideration. I think the fact that we do have a community-led initiative is that we're going to work together with all of our partners moving forward. You know, we've got a framework set out for a phase 1 agreement should the community partners want to start. And I anticipate there'll be a number of partners joining us. There's been some great information today. We're going to take all that with us. I think the recommendations in the report still stand, and I would put forward that they be approved. Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a comment on the whole story. So I'd like to commend staff. I think this is the best staff report I can recall in my 7 years in this council. It was comprehensive, it was balanced. You took what initially was regarded as a simple opportunity and recognized the complexities. And Jeff Leader's story just sort of emphasized the complexity from the natural state of affairs. There are competing interests which perhaps were not there when this story started. And there are external forces that have been imposed upon us, Amrise particularly. And I think even in the time that we've been looking at this, business opportunities have come forward through BME that would interest us in using the land that is currently operated and owned by the county, and we don't want to compromise that. So this is a complex situation which needs oversight, and it needs management of the whole, and I'm reluctant to piecemeal it any more than we are proposing in our report. And I like the idea of offering the opportunity to the cycling club to work on the dedicated area for the cycling area. But I do want to keep control in the county. It is an enormous opportunity for us. Nowhere else in the county do we have 300 and God knows how many acres that we can dedicate to recreational activities. And we've been through this just recently. The amount of land that the county owns is so limited. And I think we owe it to all of our residents to make it a place that is available and attractive to all residents. So yes, we need to try and support what the cycling club want to do. But I think, as one of the delegates mentioned, when you look at the survey, there's a lot more people actually saying, we'd like to hike around here. I can imagine there are people that would like to do winter sports around there. So I think it needs to be retained as a county-managed and directed project. Recognise it may go a little more slowly than perhaps if individuals can take chunks away. But I'm very supportive of the recommendation and will be voting in favour. Thank you to staff.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bell. Councillor Chambers?
I'm just wondering if I could ask a question through you to the staff. The recommendation is that we receive for information. It's good information. There's no argument about that. And then it asks that we approve the master plan. What exactly are we approving? Are we approving a plan that's going to carry on for the next 11 or so years, costing millions of dollars, and it's all said and done, goodbye, staff, go do it? Or what actually are we approving?
Through the chair. So you're basically approving a roadmap for the next 20 years, but individual projects will come in and be considered through budget process. So there may be pieces of it that we'll try and build into the 10-year capital program. There'll be pieces that we'll be building into the operating program as far as, you know, our staff project manager that'll spend a certain amount of time on this project. But I think, you know, we're looking that this would be an opportunity for the community to come forward with funding opportunities, businesses to come forward with funding opportunities, and that as those materialize, they come forward to council for approval. So I think it'll be multi-year, multi-years of approvals. It's a multi-year approach, but this is a master plan. It's not. You're not approving the 20-year budget or the $8 million. Right now, council has approved $350,000 to fence the operational zone and $100,000 to go towards additional consulting and archaeology work. To kickstart it, we put that in the budget, and that was approved by council, and I appreciate that, to help us keep things moving. Because I know that the community groups really want to see things happen, and those were the two pieces that were critical to keep things moving. So in a nutshell, that's it.
And if I might just add to the discussion, and perhaps you can respond, the conservation GRCA-owned lands are almost half, or maybe a little bit more than half, if I remember, if I look at the plan. Conservation authorities are right now in a period of flux, both in terms of what they can and can't do with their properties, and what they may or may not be able to do in the future, because they may or may not be able to be in existence as we know them today. So with half of the properties being owned by the Grand River Conservation Authority, and the flux with the conservation authorities that are going on right now, how does that impact a master plan? And the other aspect of that is the aggregate licensing on GRCA lands, with agreements with GRCA, no doubt, and with the county. Half of this property is encumbered, I will call that, with various external organizations. So we are actually planning on lands that we don't own and have no rights with aggregate licensing. So are we premature in approving this long-range plan with not knowing what's going to happen with half of the property that we're looking at. In other words, we're planning on somebody else's property.
So through the chair, so the GRCA has been integral in this study and part of it. As far as we know right now, there's no reason that we can't enter into a maintenance agreement with the GRCA. They're not willing to enter into a maintenance agreement with any of our user groups. They specifically want to enter in an agreement with us. It's a bit complicated in that we're still working with Amrise and the GRCA together. You know, if we take on the maintenance of that half of the property, say 200 acres, immediately, and extraction is going to happen, we're just going to be managing that piece of it. So I think we want to be cautious in how we approach it. Even if, you know, something changes with the mergers of the conservation authorities, the plan is structured in such a way that, you know, we could build pieces of it. It's flexible. It gives you an overall plan, and I hope that you know, being more of a core service, that I think we shouldn't see a problem in the future, but I can't say for sure.
And if I might be just allowed to continue, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the GRCA Conservation Authority issues, our Apps Mill plans and projects, without getting into them specifically, there may be county funds required in that aspect of it. And it's very much a similar sort of a thing with trails and educational opportunities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are we able to afford doing two major projects with our debt limit and our capital programming and long-term financial plan, et cetera? I don't think maybe you can answer that, and I don't really expect an answer, but I'm just flagging that as a caution to approving a multi-million-dollar master plan into the future without knowing a little bit more about what's going on with conservation authorities. And I just wanted to make comment on I had mentioned it, one of the questions, the Long Point cycling partnership. There's a lot of land actually owned in the county by Long Point Conservation Authority, and it's owned just to be land, environmentally significant lands. We don't put trails in them. When I say we, I should, the Conservation Authority don't put trails in them. They don't develop them. They recognize that there are certain parcels of land that are significant to the greater good just by keeping them in their natural state and providing habitat and what I'll call managing in a way that isn't intrusive. And there are growing needs for lands like that in Brant County and Norfolk County and any other county for that matter, for just natural lands. With climate change, and you know, Chuck Beach knows all about that kind of stuff, and he actually mentioned that nature has a great way to look after itself, and if you leave it alone, it does look after itself. I have a 20-acre woodlot on my farm that I rarely go in it, actually, and it's just a short hike away, but nature has a way of looking after itself. The birch trees all died when my grandfather or great-grandfather, the chestnut trees all died when my grandfather owned the farm, and my dad owned, all the elm trees died, and now when I own it, all the ash trees are dying. But still that woodlot is there, and we manage it in a way that it's not intrusive. So just because it's a natural area doesn't say that it has to be developed for the greater good. It may be just a parcel of land that people can hike through and walk through, et cetera. Last thing I'll say is this. The interim between now and when we start developing this parcel, is there an opportunity to allow mountain biking in the area in an interim period on an agreement with the county, much like the Turkey Point riders do with Long Point in their properties down there. And Long Point has found that the mountain bikers have very, very little impact on the areas that they're riding through. So it's a good advertisement for the bikers.
Want to comment on that, Phil?
Through the chair, I guess, couple comments. One is that there is a ton of unauthorized use in the site, motorized and non-motorized. And I think as we develop the site out, eventually I think that's what's going to be the deterrent and help for those areas to be restored, one, by our help, and two, by just naturalization. I think if we continue to let things continue, it's going to continue to erode, and I think the environmentalists in the room will tell you that. As far as the unauthorized use, we're not going to condone that from a staff point of view. Right now, you know, we have an MECP approval. It's not the same sort of a site as, you know, a hydrocut or just a naturalized area. This is an active site that we're working to have these uses included on the site. So, you know, hopefully we get through that portion. We've started the work back in November, trying to be proactive. Andrea Bizard and her team have been working hard on that with MECP. But I think it's a multi-phased approach. At the end of the day, people are going to still do unauthorized use of the park. I mean, Steve Howes is in the room at council, and he was one of the biggest abusers, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, we want to move towards a restored area, a place for all of our community to enjoy, and hopefully the cyclists will, you know, of the 19 to 21 kilometers of trail, and I know part of it's shared, will get some enjoyment out of it as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I think our CAO wants to circle back to one of your first questions there, Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to Council. I just wanted to make a clarification regarding the budgetary piece. So one of the policies that we brought forward in terms of the long-term financial plan, I know it's new, just came forward this past year, is that when we approve master plans, we are not approving the budgetary pieces that may go out many years. So those would each have to come forward individually. It's a little bit different than what we've done in the past, and that affords a lot more discretion and flexibility to council moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions on the report? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad that Allison just brought up about this master plan, about the finances. And that's what concerns me the most, is that you've got an estimation here approximately of $8 million over a number of years. How much do you think the municipality is going to have to put into this to make this project work? I know you've got a list of potential key partners, but until I see the coin come, I have issues. And one of them is that we have residents in the rural areas, especially Ward 4 and Ward 5, that still have a lot of gravel roads that need repaired and whatnot, and then we're putting all this money into trails for, and I hate to say it, recreation, but you gotta be responsible to my constituents too. So I'm concerned about this whole thing, and I'm gonna support it, but I would like to know, and I like the way Duncan and a few others said, have a report back here by June so this council can deal with it. That's what needs to be done. We've dragged this out way too damn long, and let's get to it. But I would like to know a little bit more about how much the key sponsors are going to kick into it.
Are you gonna tackle that or no? No. Okay, I think that is the unknowns. Okay, so any other questions from committee? Okay, seeing none, there is a recommendation that has been moved and seconded on the floor, so I will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, what I'm gonna do here is we are gonna take a 5-minute recess, and we're going to switch chair and move on from there. But again, thank you to all that come out today. 5 minutes.
All right, welcome to the second half of the today's meeting. I have a BIA AGM at 6 o'clock, so we're going to get out of here as soon as we can. All right, item number 5, adoption of the minutes from the previous meetings. 5.1, this is that the Administration Operations Committee meetings of January 13 be approved. Do we have a mover? Councillor Coleman, seconder. Councillor Bell, any discussion? Thanks, I'll call the vote. Thank you very much. Moving on, any business arising from the minutes? Thank you very much. Moving on to consent items. So we have the following consent items to be approved. First is RPT 43-26, award of Ops RFT 25-21, sanitary and storm sewer system flushing and CTV inspections. Is there a presentation related to that, or do we just, no, thanks. Okay, do we have a mover? Councillor Bell, seconder. Councillor Coleman, any discussion? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. The range in the tendered prices was enormous. It looked like it ranged from 1 unit to 10 units. Are we confident that the lowest price is going to deliver what we want?
Thank you, Councillor Bell. We will ask Andrea to respond.
Through the chair to Councillor Bell, yes, we are confident in the vendor that we're awarding it to. They weren't the lowest price. There was one other bid on there that didn't meet all the requirements.
Like the upper end of the range was 10 times the lower end.
Yep.
Can you explain why that might be and why we should have confidence in one that is a tenth of the highest tendered price?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Bell, I can't speak to why there's such a wide variety in pricing, but in reviewing their references and the work that they've done in other municipalities, they're qualified to do this work.
Thank you. And if I understand it correctly, $25 per event? Is that every time the camera goes down a drain hole, it's $25? Is that how I understand it?
I believe the unit price is based on kilometers, not per event.
Okay, thank you. I'll try and understand that. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrea. Are there any other questions related to this one? If not, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to 7.1.2, Oakland Community Center Drinking Water System. Again, staff report, no, or discussion, we just want to move right into it? Okay, I'll ask for a mover. The mayor, seconded by Councillor Bell. Any questions for staff? Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. One quick question. I read all the chemicals tested. They all are tested below the provincial guidelines. When we do these extensive tests, aren't those forever chemicals that keep popping up that I hear about, are they being tested as well, or does that need something above and beyond what's being tested?
Thank you. Andrea's on her way back.
Thank you through the chair to Councillor Miller. The forever chemicals are not a regulated compound at this point in time, so they're not part of the suite that we analyze for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Any further questions on this one? No, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll move on to 7.1.3 Omnibus Report to award 4 bridge tenders. We'll first get a mover to put it on the floor. Councillor Coleman, seconded by Councillor Miller. Do we have questions for Joe Murphy? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Unanimous. In favor. Thank you very much. Moving on to 7.1.4, various parking modifications. Mover, please. Councillor Bell, seconded by anyone? Councillor Coleman, thank you very much. Do we have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Unanimously carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to 7.1.5, Building Bylaw 422, Housekeeping Update. Mover, please. Mayor, seconder, Counselor Bell. Do we have any questions for staff on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Unanimously carried. Thank you very much. We have consent items to be received. No, we did that already. Where are we at? Oh, yeah, consent, okay. Would any members like anything separated from the list of consent items to be received? Counselor Bell. 7.2.1. Okay, thank you. Any others from anyone else? I'll ask for a mover for the rest. That'd be the mayor, seconded by Counselor Bell. All those in favor, oh, sorry, discussion on the rest? I guess not. All those in favor to move the rest? Thank you, unanimously carried. Back to you, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at the page 200 of our report. It's the development charges statement summary for the year ending December 31st last year, or 2024. I see that the available balance is minus 27.6 million. And if somebody could explain whether that's a problem or not, I would like to know.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bell. Looks like we've got Heathers on their way, or one at least. Oh, both.
Through the chair to Councillor Bell. There is usually a bit of a timing delay of when the full amount of construction project cost is approved versus when the project expenses are being incurred. So the point of the committed column, which is part of the new regulation changes, is that we have to show how much we've committed to the projects that we have not spent yet. And there are some larger projects that have been approved but are in like engineering phase right now, and the bulk of costs are not going to hit until 25, 26.
And if I may then, Heather, does that 27.6 million deficit disappear then over the next couple of years? Do we get more money coming in that meets that balance?
Through the chair, so we do receive DC fees annually. And there are a couple of the larger projects on the list that grant funding was approved for the 2025 expenses. So the committed DCs for those projects decrease in 2025, so that there's not such a large amount of committed DC funding because it's got federal or provincial grant funding instead.
Okay. And is this impacting our cash flow in any way?
No, it is not, because it is not money that's been spent. It's just money that's been earmarked as we're going to spend this money as it's received. And if at the point where we are incurring the large amount of expenses, that our analysis shows that we're not receiving the DCs as quickly as we anticipated, we would have to bring a report back to council for a specific project to request that we fund it through potentially debentures to be repaid by future DCs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Heather and Heather. Councillor Bell, does that satisfy your questions? Thank you. I trust then that you will move to receive that report, seconded by Councillor Chambers. Then Councillor Chambers has a question.
I'm just, I think I understand the deficit in the development charges, and that will continue on and on and on as a development charge deficit, because we borrow from development charges to fund our projects. And is that borrowed against future development charges to be collected? Is that how that works? Am I understanding that right?
Through the chair to Councillor Chambers. All the large projects that are causing this deficit, not deficit necessarily, sorry, but a large amount of committed funds is because the infrastructure has to go in the ground before we get to the point of development charge fees being paid to the county. So we're incurring expenses prior to getting the amount to fund them.
So the available balance is offset by receivables that are in place. We're not actually borrowing against receivables that aren't there. In other words, we always have to have receivables to cover the deficit balance.
Through the chair, yes, overall, like the development charges as a whole have to be in the good. We can borrow among the different services, but overall it has to be to the good in the actual expenditures. It's when we get to the committed that's driving the current projects. And as we move forward, that will, if we need to do anything different, we'll be coming back to council.
Just as long as we don't incur a point in time where our deficit in the development charges account, the available balance being negative, is not something that we have to have development for that we don't know about.
Correct.
I don't think that's legal to do that.
No.
And so we can't go into debt on the hope that we're going to have development.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Does that satisfy all your questions? Thank you, and thank you to staff. I'll call the vote then to receive this as information. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to staff reports. We've done 8.1, so we're off to 8.2. Report on residential nuisance lighting. We'll call Greg Bergeron to come up and speak to their report.
Thank you. So I'm here to present the nuisance lighting report 0052. Just going to briefly summarize what the report says. So the report is responding to a resident's request for a nuisance lighting bylaw in residential areas at the meeting of the Administration and Operations Committee on October 21st. So staff can advise that the county's current property standard bylaw already addresses direct lighting, and it's quite effective. It does allow officers to order corrections when light shines directly into a neighboring dwelling. So existing tools that we have right now to deal with these issues include education, voluntary compliance, free third-party mediation, the issuance of property standards orders, and enforcement. Historically, the application of the current regulations has produced positive results, and the county's approach is consistent with other municipalities. While new regulations could be drafted, we have to caution that this may cause unnecessary complexities and additional enforcement burdens, particularly since officers would have to attend more often at night. Staff also note that this request stems from a single delegation, and expanding the regulations without a broader community may not be justified. So we are therefore seeking direction from the committee if they wish to pursue additional regulations and public engagement. But I will note that the report underscores that, the current framework right now under the property standards bylaw appears to be sufficient. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Greg. We appreciate that report. And can I get a mover first, Councillor Bell, and a seconder being Councillor Coleman to have it on the floor? Councillor Bell, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Greg. Greg, the originator of this concern was a resident of Ward 3, so I'm going to speak on behalf of that resident. I note in your report you said that our current bylaw appears to be sufficient and staff have seen some success in resolving complaints, but not total success. And I do note that Hamilton, Norfolk and Mississauga actually have a more stringent requirement than us. Why would we not? What's the danger in following what they have given? Because it would address the concern that the neighbour has, and I think it's going to be an increasing concern as we see increasing density in the population certainly in Paris and St. George.
Through the chair. So we did do an analysis of, what's been out there the last 6 years with the county. So we've responded to approximately 38 complaints in relation to light. There's only 2 of those complaints that were not fully resolved. Most of the residents understand when you tell them that the bylaw applies to light shining directly into a dwelling. They understand that they'll take the necessary actions to mitigate that light. To your point, it's certainly something we can regulate. I don't know if the time is right, but it's certainly something that we can look at regulating in the future. That's why we're seeking direction at this point. We only have 1 delegation. We get 6.3 complaints per year related to light, and so far it's been pretty effective.
So, Mr. Chair, I will offer the direction that we move to increase the stringency of our bylaw in line with the practice in Mississauga, Hamilton and Norfolk.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. We already have a mover and a seconder on receiving this report. What's the structure, Mr. Clerk, on Councillor Bell changing the direction?
With respect, Mr. Chair, I think the motion as brought forward is seeking direction, and I'm offering direction.
Okay, thank you. I do want clarification from the clerk, Councillor Bell, in that it was originally to be received as information. And does Councillor Bell's request change the nature of that?
Through the chair, as the recommendation notes, the committee to provide direction, the direction provided by Councillor Bell would fall within that recommendation.
But my question is, does there have to be a seconder to Councillor Bell's? Is that a separate motion or an amendment?
I would suggest yes.
Yeah, I would too. So I'm going to take it this way. So Councillor Bell is adding an amendment to the motion to receive as information with direction to staff. Is there a seconder to Councillor Bell's motion? And we have is that Councillor Miller, are you seconding? Or do you have a question?
No, I have a question for Greg.
Okay, I will come back to you, but let's see if we have a seconder for Councillor Bell. Okay, we do, with the mayor. All right, so we have direction, moved and seconded. We have questions from Councillor Miller, and it looks like Councillor Chambers. Go ahead, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question to Greg is, and I think it said this in the report, but can you just clarify? The complainant that generated this report, you feel, Greg, that could have been dealt with satisfactorily through the current bylaws. Is that correct?
Through the chair. So there were some avenues that were explored with the residents. Unfortunately, they were declined. We did offer third-party mediation, and it was declined. We thought that maybe we could see some success in resolving this complaint. I will say that I did have some conversations with the city of Mississauga. They advise that they get a lot of these noise complaints. And the way their bylaw is designed is where the light trespasses onto the property line. So it's very subjective. It basically comes down to a decision by the officer whether they want to pursue the matter or not. They do get bogged down in, some complaints are obviously legitimate, but they also get bogged down in, some disputes between the neighbors that have been long-standing.
I'm not sure. I was hoping for a yes or a no. Sounds a little bit more nuanced. Like I understand the mediation process because you've helped me with that before for a couple neighbors, but
I could further clarify. When the officer attended, he did not see any light that was shining directly into the dwelling. It was all ambient light. So by the nature of what's in our bylaw, it didn't meet the threshold.
okay, ambient, yeah, and I read that in the report, ambient light. Okay, thank you.
I think Councillor Miller asked the same question that I'm going to, but I have another question. So the outstanding issues that have not been resolved, there is, in the opinion of the Bylaw Enforcement Division, there is no bylaw infraction. In other words, it is consistent with the bylaw.
Through the chair to Councillor Chambers, yes, that's correct. So one is from a number of years ago, involves two neighbors.
It doesn't, I don't really need to.
Okay.
I have a comment then. So changing the bylaw will not impact those existing conditions because they are legally non-conforming if we change the bylaw. So changing the bylaw to rectify a few examples isn't going to rectify those few examples because they would be classified as legal non-conforming.
Through the chair, no, that's not accurate because it's a municipal act bylaw. So the new standards would apply to those individuals. So they're not retrospective.
So you can pass bylaws to force someone to change something that they had before the bylaw was changed.
Through the chair, under the municipal act, yes, we can do that if we build in that provision. It is certainly something that can be done. I think what you may be thinking about is the planning act bylaw, the zoning bylaw, which does see that right as having legal non-conforming status if it existed the day of, right, and it was legal the day of. After enactment, if it becomes legal, they do get legal non-conforming status. Again, the onus is on that individual to prove, it's reverse onus, but that does not apply to municipal act.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, are there any other questions to Councillor Bell's direction? In which case, we will call the vote. All those in favor of Councillor Bell's direction? Opposed? That did not carry. Clerk, we go back to voting on the original motion to receive as information. Any questions on that? All those in favor? Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Moving on, Greg's sticking around. We'll ask Haley Gilmore to join him. 8.3 is report 86-26 Automated Speed Enforcement Program Analysis and Next Steps. Can I have a mover to get it on the floor? Councillor Coleman, seconded by Councillor Kyle. We will ask Greg and Haley to speak to their report.
Good morning, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you for having us here today. Before we launch into any questions on the report, just wanted to provide a quick summary of what the intention of this is. So the focus of the report, there's really two main functions. The first is to provide an overview of the ASC program more broadly, looking at the safety and financial impacts. And the second section of the report talks about next steps. So what are we doing moving forward to wind down the program? So just to provide a quick summary of the impact section. So for the safety impact, we looked at 5 main indicators. That was traffic volume, speeding prevalence, maximum speed, average speed, and repeat offender data. And it's quite clear across these indicators that the presence of ASC had a positive impact on road safety and decreased speeds throughout the Silver Street location. We also see the repeat offender data shows a positive trend as well, where folks are starting to learn and change their driver behavior, which is important. We also wanted to look at not only the impacts of ASC while it was present, but what happened post-removal of ASC. So we have just 2 months of data to look at right now, but we're committed to continue to analyze data moving forward to understand how the absence of ASC impacts speeding within the Silver Street zone. But what we can tell so far is after the removal of ASC, the speeding prevalence, not surprisingly, did rise. It's promising that it didn't rise back to pre-ASC levels, so it does show the long-term impacts of the program. But it is, of note that ASC did have an impact within that zone. And then from the financial impact section, again, not the intention of the ASC program, but a positive spin-off, was you can see that there was some sort of program surplus that was generated throughout the program that can support road safety and traffic calming initiatives throughout the county more broadly. So not only did ASC have an impact within the zones where they were operating, but it can impact the county throughout different areas. And then in terms of next steps, the report outlines some direction for how we can use that program surplus to support the ongoing wind down of the program, and also some new traffic calming initiatives throughout the county through consultation with staff. And it also outlines some details about the Road Safety Initiative Fund, which is a provincial grant that is kind of being announced in 2 phases, where we can access some additional funding to do traffic calming initiatives in those zones where ASC was previously deployed. So Greg and I are happy to answer any questions about the data side of things and the program analysis, and also the wind down of the program.
Thank you very much, Haley. Do members of committee have any questions for staff on this? Councillor Bell?
Yeah, I'm not sure that Haley and Greg are the people to answer it. Maybe Greg Demers behind me. I'm interested in, if we can't put ASE in these locations, what would be the traffic calming measures that would achieve the equivalent effect? And can we do it? And are we going to do it?
Through the chair, that's what we're examining now. We're talking with our partners around Ontario. We're all in the same boat. We're talking about next steps. Currently, we're working with the province. They've sent us signage, which we have installed, and they are sending us, hopefully by August, flashing lights to install in the area. So we'll have that both for Beverly Street and Silver Street. The other areas that we had proposed, we're looking at those on an individual basis because they weren't part of the ASC program. When the province shut the program down, they might not qualify. So we're all working through this together. There's some unique situations with some of these schools. Silver Street's a main corridor coming into town, so you can't necessarily put speed humps because that would be very disruptive to residents with truck traffic, say. Looking at Beverly Street, it's a main corridor coming into town that's also used by agricultural equipment. So we're trying to look at necking down. You can't put in gateway features, same as Mount Pleasant. So some of these schools that are built on arterial or main roads are a big challenge for us to do traffic calming, and that's why they were great candidates for ASC.
Thank you, Greg, and I appreciate the analysis of those 3 locations. Are we able to give that feedback to appropriate levels of provincial government? Because it's all very well saying ASC doesn't work, let's take it out, let's ban it, and offer money, but if the money can't be used effectively to achieve the result you want, then we're actually we're going backwards, we're not going forwards on this case.
Through the chair, when meeting with the province, I've said that as nicely as I can.
And what reaction did you get?
Just to work with them, and that they are going to provide us with signage and flashing lights, and we had to meet their timelines.
So that's the best the provincial government can do, give us flashing lights.
I wouldn't say that right now, but that's what's been offered to us at this point, and the funding's coming. But because it's very early in the stages, I'm working closely with Haley and Adam and Greg Bergeron as to where we can actually use this money. If it can only be used, as an example that I've asked for clarification from the government through Haley, is where can I use this money? Does it have to be directly in front of the school, or can I move out to the intersections approaching that school and maybe raise an intersection to calm people coming in? So we still don't have the limitations of where we can use this money.
Okay, I'll be interested in how it progresses. Thank you.
Thank you for that discussion, and hopefully with the Good Roads Conference coming up at the end of March, there might be an opportunity for some informal discussions with some of our peers who are experiencing the same frustrations, and maybe even an opportunity to informally lobby some of our provincial representatives. So appreciate that. Are there any other, we have Councillor Miller. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe this is for Haley. I think, I'm in the report, you're talking, about a screening officer position. Obviously that position would have been funded through tickets issued. And then you're suggesting that we keep that person on, that role on, to provide ongoing support to the administrative penalty system. Can you please elaborate a little bit on that? Because I'm not quite clear, of the need for that, and it doesn't discuss it much in the report.
Certainly to Councillor Miller through the chair. Yes, we want to retain that individual. As the program winds down, we do have some plans to expand the administrative penalty system for municipal act bylaws, i.e. the noise bylaw, the road use. So we're going to transition from using the court system to using the administrative penalty system internally. So the function of that screening officer will be maintained throughout. It'll be a screening officer that will transition into the administrative penalty system. And the plan is to expand that program over the next several years.
Okay, so basically, if they're not doing what we hired them for, they'll be doing something else. This is a new position. Would that be fair to say?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, yes and no, I guess, would be the answer. It's a screening officer is the position. It's authorized under the Municipal Act. It was also authorized under the regulations for ASE. So that individual could have a dual function. So it is an existing position to run screenings, but it would be for the administrative penalty system strictly, as opposed to ASE. So there is a transition there at some point throughout the year where she will be doing more administrative penalty work for sure.
Okay, I'll discuss this more when we're into the voting part. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? Councillor Miller?
Not for staff, but just for general discussion when you're ready.
I think we're ready. Go for it.
The position itself, when we see a new position, it generally comes through the budgetary process. And in the budgetary process, we get a much more detailed description of why we're adding another staff member. And I think it's a little bit late in the meeting to go on a diatribe about taxes and whatnot. But I would really like to see this go through the proper channels, the way we normally hire people, and that is new positions, and that is through budget. So I would make an amendment that part of the report of hiring the screening office position be referred to the 2027 budget.
Thank you. Before we address the proposed amendment, I think the CAO has something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Miller and committee. Cindy may be able to add more to this, but the idea of that was to use that position to fill a need while it's still paid for through the surplus funds from the APS. So right now there is no tax levy hit. If that position were to stay on, certainly it would go through the normal processes.
Thank you, Allison. Councillor, so Cindy has more to add.
Thank you through the chair to committee. Just to comment a bit further, the person in this role was hired into a permanent full-time position with the organization as part of the ASE program and has retained significant knowledge in the last few months. So the staff report has contemplated how do we structure, moving out of ASE and knowing that we're moving into APS and having a resource available. And so the reserve fund, as the CAO mentioned, will support the position for the balance of this year. And knowing that as APS moves forward, staff would be coming forward with a request next year for a resource if this wasn't to move forward anyways. This is a way to retain that individual who's already acquired the knowledge and skills to move forward with the APS program.
Thank you, Cindy. Councillor Miller, does the information from staff change your desire to have an amendment?
Well, Mr. Chair, if that information was in the report, I probably wouldn't be bringing forward that amendment, so I'll take it off the table. But I wanted to point out, again, and this goes for any department, if we're bringing some people on because there's a need, I got that, I understand that, you go through the budget process. If there's no longer a need, I don't think we should be keeping those people on. There was a surge, we needed of planners a few years back, and I asked the exact same question. If planning applications drop, will we reduce the number of planners? And the answer was yes. So just because someone comes on, they learn the system, I don't think if there's not a need that we should keep them on. But if I have assurances from staff, and it sounds like I do, that when this goes on to the levy, it has to come through budget. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Miller, and I'm sure that your comments regarding staffing and staff planning have been noted. And are there any other questions specific to the motion for the report and resolution at hand? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimously carried. Moving on to 8.4, Buy Ontario Act. I'm going to call on Laura Lynn Rose to speak to their report. While Laura Lynn is moving up to the podium, can I have a mover to get this on the floor? Councillor Coleman, seconded by the mayor. Over to you, Laura Lynn.
The chair through you, thank you. This report is basically looking for permission to submit comments to the provincial government regarding the Buy Ontario Act, and we're just looking for feedback.
Thank you very much. Anyone on committee have feedback for staff on this topic? We see Councillor Miller. Go ahead, please.
Just in the report, through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, and we did mention this when we talked about it at one of the meetings, but I didn't see it in the report, and that's in regarding, I think it's CETA, but any trade agreements where, do we have choices? I guess if the province is telling us that we have to do this, then the province will deal with that, but any thoughts on, or comments on trade agreements that say we can't source locally for amounts over, I don't know what it is, but any thoughts on that?
The chair through you. With the province not releasing monetary thresholds at this current time, we are under whatever they say. We're hoping that it's going to go to about 140,000, which would hit the CEFTA agreement.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Miller?
Yeah, it does. Like I say, at the end of the day, it's the province is gonna, if there's any issues with it, but I'm sure they'll make sure to, well, I'm not sure, but I think they would make it aligned with trade agreements. So 140,000 is the threshold. Okay, appreciate the answer.
Thank you. And I see a question from Councillor Chambers.
I'm just trying to figure out how this impacts buying automobiles in the fleet. And I really don't understand the implications, but if I do, please correct me. So electric vehicles are no longer an option because they're not produced in Ontario. Am I correct on that?
The chair through you, correct.
And there's only a few models that are currently made in Ontario, and we would be pretty well restricted to buying those models.
The chair through you, correct.
So a Ford 150 truck, which isn't built here, is no longer available to municipalities.
The chair through you, correct, unless it doesn't meet our needs. And then we can go to the tier 2.
So when we tender for vehicles, this is obviously going to have a large impact not only in cost, but in being able to acquire them in a timely fashion.
The chair, through you, correct. It could impact delivery dates.
And that's just automobiles. That's going to cost us more money because of this trade situation.
The chair, through you, it's basically anything that the new act touches on.
And I'm not sure what our policies were previously about electrical vehicles, but that may have to be looked at.
Greg, would you like to speak to the policy on electric vehicles?
Through the chair, I can speak a little bit to the electric vehicles. That's our greenhouse gas emissions directive that we'd received from council with the mandate that after so many years that we would have an electrified fleet if possible, and that's what we were moving towards. So through what's come to us, those are not on the list currently. So I think that's why we need some more clarification from the provincial government as well as some direction from council as to what my fears are exactly what you brought up today is availability and cost, because we are challenged every year to deliver products and services at correct costing, and I think this could possibly drive up costing the way it's structured.
Thank you to staff for those answers. Do we have any other questions for staff? In that case, all those in favor of receiving the report? Against? I see none. Carried. Moving on to committee reports and minutes, number 9.1, Brant Connects Committee Report and Minutes of January 28th. Mover to receive, Councillor Miller, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Coleman. Pardon me. Do we have any questions to that? Councillor Miller.
Just very quickly, ASIP program, everybody's supposed to have high speed by the end of 2025. We're past the end of 2025. Not everybody has access to high speed. So the province come out and said everybody has 3 more years. The good news is those ASIP programs are close to 80% done in the county. So we will see everybody hooked up very soon in the county. So that's the good news.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. We do appreciate good news. Seeing no other questions or discussion, we will call the vote. All those in favor? Unanimously carried. Thank you. We're moving on to the Bauckham Center Advisory Committee minutes of January 29th. A mover for this one, please. Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Kyle. We will have any questions specific to this one? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of receiving? Thank you very much. Moving on to 9.3, Sports Hall of Fame Ad Hoc Committee Reports for February 4th, noting all the details enclosed. Mover, please. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Kyle, seconded. Any questions or discussion regarding Sports Hall of Fame? We have one from the mayor.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Since we had this meeting, I've heard a bit of backlash that we maybe didn't do it according to what I thought we should have been doing. We have 3 different categories. We have athletes, we have builders, and we have something else. What's the other category? Anyway, there's 3 categories, and we had, in one of the parts of the county, we had one of each and then many of one. Many athletes, one builder, one, whatever the other one is. Help me, somebody.
Teams.
Team. So we had a builder, we had a team, and we had an athlete, and then many athletes. So I thought, because we had one of each, I sort of didn't push, but I brought it up twice, that we should maybe fill the 3 categories and then have the athletes apply next year. Is that not the way that committee should be run? Is that,
I'm no expert on how the committee should be run,
You-
Mr. Mayor.
You heard the conversation. You were in the room with me. Did it sound like?
When was I in the room with you
Oh, I thought
discussing
you
this
were.
subject?
I thought you were. Anyway, but I didn't know whether it was the intention of the committee to fill those 3 spaces first and then let other people apply and let their names stand for the next year. Oh, Kathy can speak to that.
Kathy Ballantyne will come to the
Sorry,
podium
Steve, I thought you were in
and
the room.
educate us.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. The intention of the policy is to fill it as the nominations come forward. So you never really know if you're going to get 1 builder, 3 builders. It really is up to the committee to decide what is appropriate based on the nomination for that particular year. So there is no right or wrong per se. It's what you have to interpret it as you receive them.
Okay, we did vote on it. It did go through, but I didn't think that it was a very happy room when we left. And no one challenged me. And we did fill all 3 positions and 2 people would be left standing for the next year. But there's no policy around that. So I didn't really do anything wrong.
Correct.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, so noting that staff has confirmed there's some flexibility in the way those spots are filled, are you happy with us continuing to receive this?
I'm more than happy.
More than happy, okay. I see I see a question from Councilor Chambers.
With that explanation, and I don't know the people and I don't know the backgrounds, but to receive nominations and then refer them to 2027, to me that, why not just induct them this year and they don't get, is that what you're referring to, Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to, is that they say that you can have 2 athletes, a team, and a sponsor or a booster, a builder. And in one case, we had 4 athletes and a builder and a team. And we had to cut 2 athletes, but we kept their names on a list to be brought forward next year.
I'm just wondering, with Cassie's explanation, can we induct the 4 members? I don't see a reason why we can't, and that would.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there is a limit of how many nominations can be accepted each year that's outlined in the policy. So that's why there is a limit. However, I mean, I guess if council wants to make an amendment to that, they could do so. One other consideration is sometimes when we have a team nomination as well as, or maybe several teams, we have a large contingent of people that are attending these events. We may have to go outside to rent a different facility because our own facilities wouldn't facilitate the amount of space that we would need. So it's, again, sometimes it's a decision as what works for the types of nominations that we're getting.
Thank you, Kathy. So it sounds to me like we have a recommendation from the committee. Did this committee want to override that, or are we going to receive and support this report as written? I see no one initiating a change to the way this report is written. We already have a mover and a seconder. With no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. We're gonna move on to communications. Anyone have any communications? Thank you. Other business? Seeing none, we will move in camera. That the Administration Operations Committee convene in camera to discuss S-239 2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Report 18-26, Apps Mill Nature Center, proposed agreement and acquisition. Clerk will swear our.
Councilor Chambers has something.
Move to go into camera. Councilor Chambers, seconded by Councillor Coleman. Moving to go in camera. Councillor Chambers.
Under other business, and I wanted to ask this question, and if anyone knows if there are any Brant County residents competing in the 2026 Winter Olympics. And if there are, which I don't know of any, but if there are, I would like to move that we congratulate whoever. So if that can be
Sure. Yeah, so
determined.
that's a very good point, and thank you, Councillor Chambers. So if anyone of the many, many people who will watch this meeting later see this and hear, please contact your local council representative to let us know if you're aware of a County of Brant resident who would be competing in the current Olympics. Thank you. Did we get the mover and seconder? Yeah, we did. Okay, thanks. No, that's fine. Take a minute for the clerk to swear in Councillor Miller and Councillor Kyle. for the betterment of the county of Brant, and I do like that. Nothing else.